Is this not why you are here?
Ooh, today's gonna get spooky. Today we're gonna talk about chick crack and the myth of the feminine mystique. I'll explain to you why this is so timely a topic today. Do women have magical, supernatural, magical powers? Do they have a greater sense of empathy? We'll find out today. Rational Male. Hey. Hey. Okay. That's enough of that. Oh, wait. Hold on, today I actually can give you what you've been waiting for all of this time. Yes, it is the Greyhound Cam. He's not very entertaining today. I'm sorry. He's sacked out. I have two Greyhounds in here with me today, too. Bambi's over here to my right. Let me push you guys back here. There we go. How you guys doing? Last week was good too, man. We're doing a whole lot better these days, at least as a channel anyways. I had just passed 50,000 subs, which is significant to me because I started this channel out because I just wanted to explain certain things. I didn't really even want to become sort of like a YouTuber for a while. I actually kind of resisted. You know, what's funny is I think that's sort of my template. It's the path I always follow. Like when I was writing on So Suave, everybody says you need to get a blog, and I'm like, I don't know. I really kind of like the group discussion kind of thing. And I broke down and got a blog, and then the blog took off, and it was really great. And I did what people told me to do, and it was good. And then people said write a book, and I'm like, I don't know. Do you think? Well, people will take you much more seriously if you have a book, because it's a book and it's not the internet. And I thought, well, all right, let's see what I can do. You guys don't know. Actually, I probably shouldn't say this, but the impetus, I should say, the motivation for me to write the book was, I thought, this is going to sound typical Rollo Tomassi. I wrote the book, and I knew I wanted to do it. I shouldn't say I didn't want to do it, but what really kind of like prodded me along was the fact that I have greyhounds, as you have seen. And if you know anything about greyhounds, they are a very expensive breed of dog to maintain. So like a vet bill is not like you got a pound dog or something like that. You go to the vet and they check it out. It's good. See you in another 3 years. That's not how it works with greyhounds. Greyhounds have very thin skin, so if they get a tear or they get a scratch, it spreads. So like if you know somebody that has a greyhound, and they're kind of like sketchy about having their dogs like come up on yours, or they want to play with your dog, like a lot of people will do that. They want your dogs to, can my dogs go run with yours? Yeah, if you want your dog to get run to ground in the park. But the other thing is like, if they start roughhousing or whatever, even a small nick or a scratch or even just like a minor like bite or something like that. You want to know why greyhounds are not they're not super aggressive dogs. They're not territorial dogs, I should say. I should probably I could do a whole like probably 15-minute video just on greyhounds. I wonder if people would actually watch that. But they're expensive. And so I'm like, well, maybe I could take some of the money from the book and apply it towards my vet bills. And that's actually what prompted me to start to say, well, yeah, I thought it was just going to be gravy money, right? I'm just like, okay, well, it's fine. I was doing pretty good, still doing pretty good financially. But now you know a little bit. There you go. So today we're going to be talking about chick crack. Before I jump in to today's topic, I got to give you I'll give you a little bit of background as to why I'm doing this. I have read more than one article right now about how what we're going through here in the United States and maybe even worldwide is almost like a cult. It's like a religious fervor. And I think I was watching Tim Pool or somebody. Maybe I just saw a retweet from Tim, or maybe it was Adam Krigler or something like that. But I saw a retweet of, I guess, Antifa setting a big pile of Bibles on fire in Portland or Seattle. I don't know exactly. Well, one of those cities that's burning right now. And I saw that and I go, yeah, I knew this was going to happen. Like once we started pulling down monuments and things, I was like, that's meant to provoke. When you see people like trying to tear down and erase the past, originally that's meant to provoke. But then when you get to the point where it's like you're burning churches or you're burning Bibles or you're burning synagogues or mosques or whatever, that sends a different message. And so as a result of me following up on that tweet, I ran into, I think it was on Quillette or some other, pretty sure it was Quillette. I read an article about how this is how sort of religious movements get started. And it was pertinent to what I've been writing about, obviously, in book 4, which is The Red Pill and Religion. And I have never been more glad. I know you guys are really sort of frothing at the mouth to get on book 4, but I am actually kind of glad I haven't put it out yet, because the things that are happening right now, like live and in real time, has confirmed a lot of what I've already written. And then I think I'm a little bit more timely with a lot of what I've been putting into the book right now. And so seeing this sort of happen in real time, I wish it wasn't validating. I wish I wasn't right, but I was right. So yeah, cult of liberalism, cult of feminism. Yeah, well, okay, here's the thing is we're going to talk a little bit about why feminism and the female imperative, let's say, or the feminine imperative. I've titled it that. I need to sort of define some terms there. But before I do, I am jumping on board really quickly on this very last day. You have 48 hours to do this if you really want to. Donovan Sharp has his Womanese Volume 2 that he is doing. It is I guess an online interactive class similar to what John from Modern Life Dating has done with his body language mastery. No, I'm not going to bring Donovan on right now because it's kind of off topic from what I'm talking about today, but I am going to endorse it. I had to sort of step back the first time. This is volume 2. So I stepped back the first time and I've sort of audited what he's been doing with this one. And I'm very, as you know, I'm very particular about who I endorse after having made prior mistakes. So when I endorse somebody, particularly when it's sort of one of these teachable kind of classes, I have to really, I usually wait for the second round so I can see what people are doing before I want to, I don't like to co-brand, period, but I will with certain people, I will with certain things if I think that it is if it aligns with what the red pill really is intended to be. So he's doing a teachable class on womanese, and that you can find, where is it? Here we go. So this is it right here. The link to this, if you wish to sign up and you want to go through my affiliate link, it is the first link in the description right there below. Or if you feel like you want to type it in yourself, and I don't know why, here it is right here on the ticker below. There you go. So Womanese Volume 2. And this is, again, this is Donovan Sharp. I'm not going to I won't get into too much detail here, but if you want to go check that out, all of the details are on that link right there. So you can see what it is that he is doing. There we go. Bring me back up. It's funny when I do my own show. I hosted a Rule Zero yesterday. And so when I host Rule Zero and we have like 6 people on or more now, I do a lot of directing traffic, and it seems to me like it's easier to do it when you're just the host and you're sort of asking the questions and letting the panel answer. So there we go. All right. So if you want to get in on Volume 2, Womanese Volume 2, there it is. Please check it out. You help me out when you do so. You support the show when you do so, if that's something that you want to do. And here's the other thing. If you do, get back to me. Let me know what you thought of it. I would be interested to know. Like I said, I'm endorsing it on this go round. So there you have it. All right. So let's get down to brass tacks here. Let's start with our good friend Christian Matiko here. I have not seen Sam Bada. I don't know if he's modding right now. He might be. Anyways, if he's not, I've got others in there too. If a girl identifies with a house in Harry Potter or is way into her sign, run like hell. Love what you do. Yeah. Well, let's talk about that, right? So what is chick crack? Chick crack is, a lot of people will define this in different ways. The first original definition, let's say, of chick crack was sort of coined by guys in the pickup artist community, in the early pickup artist community. And you know what? 1 second, if you guys will just bear with me 1 second, I am going to go into audio and I'm going to disable audio processing. There we go. People were complaining that when I was hitting my P's, like chick crack or pickup artist or PUA, I was really popping a lot. I have a pop filter actually right here. I probably could use it, but I don't need it because this mic actually has a pop filter, and I didn't get any complaints until I started using the audio processing from StreamYard. So let me know if I'm popping on this one too. So anyways, old pickup artist term was chick crack. Now, what was chick crack? Chick crack was something that the early PUAs picked up on very, very early in the game. It's in actually the book, The Game. If you want to know what chick crack is, I believe there's a whole full section in there. And what it is was the early pickup artists figured out that when they were in a sarge, right, when they were in an approach, when they were working a set, when they were chatting up a girl for the first time, it helped if they put into that routine something that was kind of like mystical or superstitious, or in some way had some mysticism applied to it. Now, that's not to say, hey, are you into tarot cards? That's cheesy and schmaltzy. It was leading into it or finding a way to sort of steer the conversation into something that's a little bit more, let's say, ego affirming for women when it comes to the supernatural. In evolutionary terms, in scientific terms, in psychological terms, this is called magical thinking. And again, why is Rollo talking about this today? Well, there's I've seen a few articles, like I said, about the idea, anyways, that we're kind of having a spiritual crisis, certainly in Western cultures right now. We've been having it for a long time. I put that in book 4, but I have put it in the context of how it works in intersexual dynamics. But when you are burning Bibles, when you are burning down churches, when you're smashing stained glass windows, when you're burning down, cathedrals that have existed for hundreds of years, you're tearing down monuments, and even if they're just political monuments, there's still sort of a spirituality, or there's some kind of there's a reason it's a monument. That's what a monument is, and it's no longer vandalism at that point. It becomes desecration. Well, why would you desecrate something? Why would you desecrate a grave? Why would you desecrate, a symbol? And symbols are important. I want to say, symbols have power. They're important to people as reminders. They're important to people who have kind of this, who want to remember something. Like if you want to go to, like, say, the Holocaust Museum, or what is it? There's one in Los Angeles, and I want to say it's like the Museum of Tolerance or something like that. But there's, and I think I've been to a long, long time ago. But for example, when you look at, say, like Auschwitz or Dachau, those are now monuments. We're keeping those there so people never forget what's going on. Okay, great. Well, when we're talking about monuments of peoples and in religions and things that are important to a particular tribe, and by tribe, I mean it could be a religion, it could be an ethnicity, it could be your family, it could be whatever. Human beings are innately tribal. And this is where I sort of part ways with guys like Jordan Peterson and God Sod. And I like God Sod quite a bit, as you know. I'm kind of a fanboy. But this is where I sort of I part ways with him, because human beings are innately tribal. We evolved to form coalitions. We evolved to be social animals. We evolved to be tribal, because that was our best way of survival. Now, is that in any way a survival benefit, or is that a deficit today, or is that a liability today, or is that actually a strength of like the human species today? I still think that the jury's kind of out on that right now, because there's a lot of things that we have as innate proclivities, as things that were beneficial to us in our ancestral past, are now liabilities to us today, such as our metabolism. And you want to know why we have so many obese people? It's because we have access to easy, quick food. And so people overeat, people get lazy, we get stupid, we get entertained, we get, lethargic, let's just say. And, back in the day when you're running away from saber-toothed tigers or something, yeah, a good shot of sugar might be something that will mean the difference between life or death. Today, it makes you morbidly obese. So I'm just throwing out quick hit examples of that. Why am I getting into that, though? Is because there is innate differences between men and women, as I have said many times in the past, particularly when I've talked about instinct, emotion, and reason, and how men and women prioritize those things. I'm not going to turn today into a religion and a red pill episode. I do want to talk about why it is that women have an innate affinity for the spiritual, for the metaphysical, for the, let's say, secret knowledge. So when I talk about innate proclivities, and I talk about, when I talk about how women prioritize emotionalism before rationalism, I'm saying that people mistake me when they think that, Rollo says that all women are emotional and all men are rational. I can't believe it. No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying is we prioritize those things differently. So when I talk about processes of interpreting our world, I usually start with instinct, which is sort of like our innate survival instincts, like to flinch or to get away from things, or revulsion is another one. That's an innate instinctual way of processing or understanding our world. Emotion is the next one. And how do we feel about that? Are we going to cry about it? Are we going to get angry about it? Are we going to experience fear? How are our, I see you, Sam, thanks. How are we going to process our world? And emotion is something when I was writing that series, Instinct, Emotion, and Reason, I was doing a little bit of research on, do animals feel emotion? And there's a lot of, let's just say there's a lot of research that indicates that higher order animals do feel some kind of emotion, or they have certainly like primates, obviously, but dogs, cats, things, maybe they're not quite as developed as human beings, because we tend to apply, I think, deeper meanings to emotions, because it's, particularly for women, it's a very powerful experience for them. For men, on the other hand, men prioritize reason before emotion, and then emotion comes. So it's not that men aren't emotional. They can be. In fact, today it's amplified. And in fact, today we condition men to swap those two out, to put emotion before reason, because we've made emotion something that is so incredibly cosmically significant, because we live in a gynocentric social order. Of course, if we're going to live in a social order that prioritizes feminine primacy above all else, of course we're going to teach generation after generation of young men, boys and young men, that the correct way to interpret their world is through emotion, because that's what women do. And that's why statistically 77% of your teachers from kindergarten all the way through postgraduate school are going to be women, and they're going to teach you from a female perspective. So you want to know why we're in a sort of a crisis right now with, a crisis of emotions, and it's, everything is, nobody cares right now about rational, reasonable debate. That's gone. You remember how I've always said that you can't appeal to reason with women. You have to appeal to emotion. You can later, but after you've appealed to emotion, then maybe you can get to reason. But most of the time, it's it's like that video. What is it? It's not about the nail. So the man wants to solve the problem by pulling the nail out of the woman's head, and all the woman wants to do is complain and cry about the nail that's in her head. And she just, you don't listen to me. You want to know why women, like why that's a trope, why that's a social convention? Men don't listen. Yeah, you're damn right we don't listen, because we don't communicate like you do. When that innately, men don't, because men and women process emotion differently, innately, naturally. We evolved along different paths so that our brain architecture is different from women's. And especially negative emotions. So when I'm talking about emotions first here, because that is the root of chick crack, that is the root of female mysticism. That's the first part right there. Women prioritize emotion before reason. So when we're talking about religion, when we're talking about magical thinking, when we're talking about astrology and MBTI and all these things that make us feel really good. What are you? Are you a feeler? Are you an interpreter? Well, I don't even know what the damn letters mean these days. There's probably added more at this point. But what does the idea of that particular philosophy, what emotions does that trigger in women? Why is it that, like, say, Jungian psychology, why is that so appealing to women and not B.F. Skinner, which is a very famous behaviorist? We don't talk about him. We talk about Jung. Why? Because we live in a gynocentric social order, and it feels better when we're talking about the kind of stuff that Jung got into back in the day. Why don't we want to talk about what Sigmund Freud was talking about? Well, no, he's been proven wrong. He was just about sex. He was just about the Oedipus complex. He was just. We don't want to talk about that because that doesn't feel good. It's not feeling well for us. So I'm throwing those out there as sort of a secular kind of ideal for magical thinking. And I'm not saying that is particularly magical thinking. I'm just saying that the process that we get to those feels, why it feels good, is part of that magical thinking. So when I am talking about religion, or the sort of evolution of religion, I'm going by. I don't want to drop too much because I got a lot of this in the book already, but let's just start at this point right now. Is like when we're talking about religion, and I don't mean religion per se, but like when we're talking about superstition, when we're talking about magical thinking, when we're talking about fear or elation or joy, or like the base emotions. There's base emotions and there's more complex emotions that are the root of. And so when we're talking about those things, it's if we're prioritizing feelings, and we've raised generation after generation of men to do exactly that in a gynocentric social order, now emotion takes on a spiritual cosmic significance. So if I feel love, it's like ecstasy. It's like I've reached a higher plane of nirvana because I'm feeling love. We tend to take strong, as human beings, I'm not just saying women here, women, because they prioritize emotion first, maybe more than others. But as human beings, we tend to take emotion, and we have done this, for a very long time, right up until I think probably 2000, once we had, more and more information, access to more and more information. We've taken emotions and we've elevated them to supernatural scales. So, I mean, literally, we say God is love. Well, what is love? Love is an emotion that we feel, and it can be a very powerful emotion. If you just want to talk about nuts and bolts, and I know a lot of guys I know a few guys, let's say, in the MGTOW community who will say, well, love is only a feeling, right? Is just a biochemical reaction that you feel when you see a hot girl and you want to get with her and you want to breed with her and you want to be parentally invested and you want to pair bond with that girl. And therefore love, the feeling of love, is an evolutionary advantage for the species. And so generation after generation after generation, we take that feeling and we turn it, because back in the day we didn't know any different from, like, we thought emotions were this spiritual thing. We tend to conflate and associate our emotional state with states of higher being or thinking of, we're out of body experiences, right? I'm so enraptured that I feel love, I feel joy, I feel ecstasy, I feel, I don't know, think of a word that describes a particular feeling. But the problem with this is that emotion is nuts and bolts. It's nuts and bolts. So when I mentioned this, I think two shows ago, where I say, well, if you took anabolic steroids, you get roid rage. Well, is that like, I know that anger can definitely be elevated up to sort of this righteousness, like this cosmically significant anger. Justify. Is there anything such as a holy war or a justifiable war? Right. Well, if you're so angry and you're so put out and you've been wronged by so many atrocities, you might conflate anger with something that is supernatural. Fear can be supernatural as well. Love, usually it's the root emotions, it's the base emotions. And so since women are innately, I won't say innately more sensitive to emotion, but it's because they prioritize emotion before reason. And there's an evolutionary and biological reason for this as well, because women are the incubators of the next generation. So they have to be more emotional, at least prioritize. I don't say they're more emotional. I say they prioritize emotion before they get into reason. And why not? Because they have to form social networks. And I don't mean like social media. I mean, like in the past, they had to form the sisterhood, right? They had to have that kind of base of support for nurturing the next generation, for survival, for that's one of the reasons I say that, like when we talk about socialism, or we talk about like collectivism, I don't want to use socialism is something that's hot right now, but really on a root level, it's more about like collectivism and collectivism amongst women. That's why I always call it the sisterhood uber alles. Well, what brings and what solidifies women? What is the one point of solidarity between all women, and irrespective of where they came from, their ethnicity, their religion, their convictions, their nationality, their tribal affiliations? What is the one thing that bonds all women? The sisterhood. Because back in the day, when one tribe went to war with another tribe, and they took the women folk as, spoils of war, and they integrated them into the women folk of their tribe, there had to be some sort of, it was either solidarity or it was death. It was, okay, well, now you're so-and-so's woman and you're going to have his kids, but don't worry, girl, we're here to help you. You want to know why the gynocracy, the gynocentrism is so endemic right now? It's because of that. It's because you want to know why, when we talk about like repealing the 19th, right? Or we talk about in some way removing women's rights, you will never get to that point, because we've gotten to a point now where the solidarity amongst women and the men who will be more than happy to go and fight to prove their quality to those women has outstripped men's ability to take spoils of war like we used to go in and integrate. So now we have this globalization. We've integrated women into the world tribe, and that world tribe now is the sisterhood uber alles. So when you guys are asking me questions about like, well, what is the feminine imperative, Rollo? That's part of it. It's whatever benefits female existence is the feminine imperative. Whatever benefits women's nature, like globally, like womankind, whatever benefits womankind's nature, that is the feminine imperative. People keep saying, well, you should just call it the feminist. No. Feminism is just the arm of the feminine imperative. Feminine imperative has existed for since we were, tribes on the savannah. But feminism itself, I mean, as a movement really started in Seneca Falls, when 1848, 49, something like that. And that's where you get sort of the real feminist push on them. Maybe there was something before that, but that's where I at least draw the line. If you want a historical, landmark, there you go. Let me look at a couple of these here, because I'm going to move on to the next part of our discussion today. Okay, I got to you, Christian Matico. Let's see. Thomas says, what's your take on flaking a girl if her online dating pictures deviate from what is displayed on social media? I'll get to you at the end. Mark that one, Sam. And Jim, passing your books down to my brothers. Good. As they are getting into the sexual marketplace, hopefully they are not too far blue pill conditioned. I hope so. I hope not. Thank you for passing it on, by the way, JM. That's really, you want to know how you can help. You want to know, people go, how can we make a difference? How can we change the course of history? That's one way. Each one tell one, pass it on. I hope my book does that too. But each one tell one, try to unplug people. I'm a bottoms up guy, right? So it's not like, oh, we're going to go in and we're going to march on Washington and change the laws. We need to change the way we think before we do anything like that. You can do that all day long. You can go out there and raise hell and say, well, we need to get women into the draft. People are going to fight you on that, but still, it would be better if you could simply red pill or unplug, whatever you want to call it, educate your friends, your sons, your daughters, or whoever. You want to know why feminism took root? That's why. YOLO says, hi, what is the evolutionary reason that women prioritize emotions? Okay, that's a good one. What is the benefits of emotions compared to reason for women's survival? Okay, like I was saying just a minute ago, YOLO, women are okay, good. Let's go with that one because that is actually the next thing that's on my list. I'll get to the rest of them here in a minute. So why would that be? Why would women have evolved to prioritize emotion before reason? Well, for men, I can give you the opposite case really, really briefly. The reason why men used to prioritize rationality and reason before emotion is because we were the ones who had the burden of performance. We still are the ones. And that performance implied competency. And competency implies learning. Of those three, instinct, emotion, and reason, the one that takes the longest is always reason. It's always rationality. You have to learn it. It's not something that's innate. Like instinct is innate. Emotion is innate. Rationality and reason, people will say, well, it's all about IQ, and then you'll use reason and rationality. And there's some very high IQ people who are some of the most emotional dudes you will ever meet. So it's not a thing about I shouldn't say that. It's not just about IQ, intelligence quotient. It's not just about that. It's also, what have you learned? Have you learned how to use reason? Have you learned how to be rational? Have you learned how to learn? Have you learned how to apply that reason and that rationality? So that's another problem, because for men, in a survival situation, in an immediate survival situation, men will usually act on instinct. Women will tend to act on instinct and then divert to emotion. So they'll freak out and they'll start crying. You can see examples of this in women being dragged away by police officers in Portland or Seattle or whatever city's burning right now. And you can see how they act on instinct. I was looking at some of these videos where these women were just mouthing off to police guys and, hey, you're not going to do anything to me. You're not, and just escalating that inherently physically unsafe circumstance. And then, you effed around and you found out, and that's what happened. And then they can't believe it. And then suddenly it switches from this instinctual, I'm going to get in your face and you're not going to do anything. And then when something happens, then it's like, oh, I can't believe it. And then they go into this emotional tizzy. It's what Freud used to call hysterics, right? You would go from this very instinctual kind of thing, well, this is what we need to do. And then when it hits the fan, that's when they devolve into emotionality. And usually it's crying is the first thing. And very rarely is it ever anger for women. It's usually crying, because that's what has biologically, and probably for most of their life since they were a little teeny tiny baby, crying is what makes men and other women come to their aid. So when a woman starts crying, she starts freaking out. She's just bawling and shaking. I'm literally shaking, right? When she's doing that, the reason why that's even a meme right now is because women know that it provokes a reaction. Like children will do the same thing. That's why we keep saying, oh, well, women are just like the most mature teenager in the house, right? They're just like little kids, and we need to be there. And it's men's responsibility to make sure that that sweetie is okay. And they understand that it works. So for a woman to cry, for a woman to be emotional is different for a man to be emotional. And it's a visceral thing. So when there's a survival circumstance, and I'll just give you a quick example, like when you're looking at like a mass shooting, when you look at the mass shooting that happened in Vegas in 2017, when you look at the mass shooting that happened in Aspen, Colorado for, I think it was James Holmes, when he went in there with weapons and shot up that theater in Aspen, Colorado. And when, there's another one, there's like a country club, I think it was in like, I want to say it was in Thousand Oaks or something like that in California. I remember doing this story with Pat Campbell, which, by the way, I did his show on Friday. And if you're missing Pat, go check out Friday's show, and go look at his Facebook or go look at his Twitter, and you'll find I was on for half an hour with him. So anyways, we talked about this, but in a mass shooting incident, what men will instinctively do is throw themselves bodily between the bullets and women that they don't even know. And in some cases, children too, right? And they don't even know why they did it because they don't know that person. They don't have, and people say, well, are men innately altruistic? And I don't think it's necessarily an altruism thing from the perspective of it being like a tribal or a family affiliation, so much as it is, that's a woman, I'm a man, I'm disposable, I put myself in front of that person, and it's instinctual. So I will hear occasionally like black pill guys or doomers, right? I'll hear even some more extreme MGTOW, I know that there are variations, who will say, well, men shouldn't do anything for women. We should never do anything. Like let them get run over. Let them get shot. Let them whatever. We should make sure that we're more important. We're the most important thing in the world, and they need to understand that. And as soon as they realize that, then maybe they'll appreciate us more. No, you're going to do it anyways. It's just like the dancing monkey syndrome. Like you're always going to try to get attention from women. You're always going to put yourself between bullets in that woman, unless you have time to think about it. There was an incident. Do you guys remember the Concordia? Was Costa? I think it was called Costa Concordia. Was the cruise liner, and I want to say it was in Italy. It might have been somewhere else, but I think it was in the Mediterranean. And I think the captain was sort of new or whatever, and he's actually gone to court. I don't know if they put him in jail or whatever, but he basically ran it aground, and the ship started listing, and it started going down. And when men had the time to think about it, about a survival situation, well, we got to abandon ship or we're all going to drown. It's kind of like the Titanic. Like, why would all those guys on the Titanic say, that's okay, ladies, we're going to go down with the ship, and you guys will, there's not enough life rafts. There's not enough lifeboats. So, we're the men and you're the women, and put the women and children first. Right. And so what happened in the wake of the Costa Concordia thing, as a result, and I remember reading these, I wrote 2 essays about this back in the day. I wrote about altruism and chivalry as a result of the Costa Concordia sinking, I guess. And women were upset because guys wouldn't, go down with the ship, or they were pushing past women to get off of the ship, or they were just basically out for their own skins. Because it wasn't an immediate danger. It wasn't a saber-toothed tiger that was about to attack them. And I think that what you will see is that in immediate survival situations, men instinctually put themselves before women in those cases. They're not using reason in that instance. When they put themselves, like they lay on top of a woman in Las Vegas so she doesn't get hit with automatic weapons, right? So she doesn't get killed. Men do that instinctively. That's an instinctual thing. It's not to say that, well, men sometimes just run away as cowards. Yeah, they do. There are guys who will want to save their own skin, but they're not making a rational, immediate decision in that moment unless they have time to think about it. What do I want to do? So I think that if you found yourself in an emergency situation where the house is on fire, or you're being shot at, or whatever, I think most men will revert to that evolutionary instinct, which is protect the women. You're disposable, but eggs are expensive and sperm is cheap, and that has a lot of significance. I know we bandy that around in the manosphere a lot, but it's true. Eggs are expensive and sperm is cheap. Historically, in our ancestral past, we know this. This is something that's part of our species memory, right? Just who we are. So that's that part right there. So for men, when it comes to reason and rationality, we have to have time to think about it. We have to have time to use what we've learned. It's like, okay, I got to use this. Now, it's not to say that you can't learn something like martial arts. So you get into a situation and you've been trained because you've learned all of this, so that when you get into these particular circumstances and they seem very immediate, you revert to what you've learned. It's like muscle memory, it's brain memory, whatever your training has been, you revert to your training. So I've used this example as before, is that, when we're taught in driver's education to turn into a skid, when all of our instincts say, no, put the brakes on, stop the car. And as soon as you slam the brakes on, you spin the car. But if you turn into the skid and then you slow yourself down and you kind of like drift, right? Then you right the car. Well, you can do that. Your software, your learning, can override your firmware. But what is the firmware? Where did it come from? And why is it still part of our starting package, like our operating system? Why is it still, important to our human operating system? So for women had to learn to prioritize emotion. I don't think maybe it's not learned, but they're firmware wise, it benefited women and it benefited human beings that women were more emotionally in tune. Right. I love how we take emotion right now and we turn it into something that's magical and spiritual, when in fact there's mood altering drugs. You can go take ayahuasca or your DMT or whatever it is and say, oh, I had this great experience and I saw God and now I'm a changed person. Maybe so, but it was the chemicals that altered your mood and altered your emotion and put you in a frame of mind where you could, I don't know, make psychological progress or whatever. I have done LSD before. I have done mushrooms before. Okay. In fact, I think I even talked about it. Somebody asked me at the end of one of these shows about, when was it like when you took LSD? I understand that there is a chemical nature to emotions. So when you look at the way that women default to emotions, it's also a biochemical aspect of that too. So I think it was last Wednesday? I was talking about endorphins. I was talking about dopamine. I was talking about, like I said, I'm not an endocrinologist, but women default to emotion. And that emotion, now here's it. So that's the first part of this whole thing. So why are emotions more important, I guess, or why would women prioritize emotions, is because it's a survival adaptation for women to do so. To have oxytocin. Remember, women experience more, or are flooded, I guess, with more oxytocin than men are. Men have more testosterone. Women have more estrogen. Right? Those are differences, and those differences affect us emotionally, and they affect us psychologically as well. So when I say, well, women process emotions differently than men, and particularly negative emotions, we know this. We have got data on it. We have pretty hard, concrete data on the fact that men and women process emotions differently, naturally, innately. Okay, now the question is, why would that be? Well, because women were the nurturers. They were the ones who had to incubate and nurture the next generation, because we ultimately, human beings, are a K-selected organism. Okay, we have babies with big heads, and those big heads have to, if we want a smart race, a relatively intelligent race, we got to have big heads. And to have those big heads, well, that means that the baby's going to be helpless for a long time. That means mom has to be the one who is doing the nurturing and taking care of the child. And it helps when you have the sisterhood, and you've got a sisterhood of tribeswomen to help you do that. And remember, it takes a village, right? It also helps if you have tribal men who innately want to protect those women, who innately, that's why I was getting at the instinct part, where men are innately sacrificial or innately altruistic towards women, because that's what worked in the past. Sacrifice yourself, put yourself between, I don't know, your mother of your child and an arrow or a big battle axe or whatever. I don't know, whatever they were using. But, the Vikings came down and killed, like raiding and slaughter. But put yourself in front of the car. Put yourself in front of, you take the bullet for your wife and kid. You take the bullet for even the woman that you don't know, because she's the incubator of the night. That's all you go by on instinct. Well, same thing works for, like, women are more emotional because, and this is point number one, women are the vulnerable sex. Oh, everybody's saying they're the weaker sex. No, I'm saying they're the most vulnerable of if a human male, a human female. The human female is the most vulnerable. End of story. Stop. Full stop right there. Women are the most vulnerable of human beings. Of the two types of human beings, women are the most vulnerable. Children are very vulnerable as well. And you got a woman who is a mother who just gave birth to a newborn baby. She is the most vulnerable, at least as far as our monkey brains are interpreting it, instinctually interpreting it. So it helps if mommy is processing emotions before reasons. Oh, I love this little baby. I would do anything for it. It sounds pretty unreasonable to do some things to support the protection of that child. Like mommy would probably do some very irrational things and some very emotional things, as long as the baby survives, because it's all about babies. It's all about pushing the next generation and making sure the species survives. Now people say, well, Rollo, it's 2020. We got hospitals, we got nurses, we got whatever. We don't need it anymore. Doesn't matter. Your brain is still stuck on the savannah from 100,000 years ago. Well, maybe not 100,000 years ago, but we're still basically the same critters that we've been for quite some time now. And as a result, like I was saying, the example I gave before is, hunger will make you obese in 2020, whereas hunger and your body prioritizing sugars as a cheap and easy form of energy from back in the day. Now that was great. If you could get some fruit and you had a really rush of energy, it might help you, whatever, or adrenaline, fight or flight. Why do we involve that? It seems like a liability today. Well, it is, unless, a big mountain cat comes and tries to tear your face off. That's, you want that adrenaline. So that's part of it. But again, what we do with that, what we do with those emotions, because like I know right now that and you do too, and pretty much anybody in first year college, or maybe hopefully by your sophomore year of high school, you understand that emotions are caused by biochemistry. Like you can eat things that will change your emotion. You can drink coffee and you can be, oh, hey, look here, bulletproof coffee. See? We have mood altering drugs. We have emotion altering drugs. So does that mean that emotions are woo woo magical thinking? Woo woo. I feel it. I feel overwhelmed by emotion. It must be, aliens. It must be, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. So where we go with that, when women and men do religion, we do it differently. And again, this I can continue. I could probably do a really long podcast about that, but that's not what today's topic about. Today's topic is about why is it that women tend to have a more, intense interest in mysticism, in the mystique. I'm sure you've probably heard this term before, the feminine mystique. I've written a full essay about it before. There's a very famous book by Betty Friedan, very famous old crusty feminist from the 70s. Now, when I talk about the feminine mystique, it is I think the feminine mystique has been something that's been with us for a long time. If you go and you ask, whenever I talk about chick crack, I talk about it in the terms of like pickup artists who have figured out that if you talk about something that's kind of like on the spirituality tip, or you talk about like astrology or tarot card readings or fortune telling, right? Or Madame Ruby, if you start talking, you don't want to be like overt about it in your, if PUA, if game is what you're doing, you don't want to be overt about it, because then it's kind of like, oh, I see what this guy's doing. But if you can hint at those things, I use this example. I used to have, I don't have it anymore, but I used to have a ring that I used to wear when I was in my college days, and it was just this little yin yang ring. And when I would be out playing gigs, I was already out. I was in the Hollywood metal scene at that time, but I'd be waiting for a set, or maybe it was after. And the number one conversation starter that I had, and now remember, this is way before the game, way before even the internet existed, but I had this little ring. It was a little yin yang on it. And that was the conversation starter that I had. It was a icebreaker, right? So girls would come and go, oh, are you a Buddhist? No. But hi, my name is Rollo Tomassi. It was real easy to like, I guess like mystery method, old school pickup artist mystery would call that like a prop, or he would say it's peacocking. I think peacocking is something a little bit differently, but that was certainly a prop, right? It was an item. It was something that was a conversation starter. And the number one thing that would start conversations back in the early 2000s for the pickup artist was something that had some kind of like mystical association. And it doesn't have to be like a crucifix or something like that. It could be whatever, or it could be just the conversation. Like, do you believe in UFOs? Right. Or, and I think a lot of guys, I think we go too binary when we think of chick crack. Chick crack is basically women's affinity for the supernatural, and using that affinity to start conversations, or to sort of get to kind of slide in, right? To get into the confidences of a woman when you are doing an approach. And you're just talking about, it's like, guys always say this. They'll say, well, Rollo, I asked her out and she said yes, but I don't know what to say. I don't have any conversation skills. I don't know. I can get there, but I'm not a good conversationalist. I lose track of the conversation. I feel like I'm the one that has to carry it on, blah, blah, blah. And so part of that really was being able to indirectly, carry the conversation, but carry it on the sense that there is something supernatural, or that you have some kind of, I don't say belief, but you have some curiosity in women's mystical like only women know about this stuff. Can you tell me? Right? Like just playing that game. And people want to say, well, you should, like we were talking on Rule Zero yesterday about direct and indirect game. That doesn't have to be, remember, the chick crack is not like, hey baby, I'm a guru and I'm going to go bake my ring and I'm going to, hey, how about I show you physical therapy and my chakras aligned and magical Brazilian power crystals. It doesn't have to be something that over the top. It doesn't have to be like that manipulative even. It's just something to talk about. And those topics have been the most, of any topics, of any, like when we're talking about conversation skills, like when we're talking about game skills and PUA skills, when it comes to topics, the one that is the most reliable has always been chick crack. That's why, and to the point where guys overuse it and abuse it. So again, it's something to sprinkle into your conversations, or maybe use as a conversation starter, but don't beat it. Don't base a relationship on it. Don't base your if you played a girl, don't base that plating on just like, oh, you're a fortune teller. Okay, Susie, read my palm. Like that was another one. That was actually another PUA chick crack. Like, oh, I'm going to read your palm. I think I know what I'm doing. You're a woman, so you would know this better than I would. But I think this is your lifeline right here. Like, and it's BS. It's stuff that's been like even the guys in the 70s, back in Studio 54, like the disco days. That what's your sign, baby? Who cares? That's all nonsense. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that it's nonsense. What matters is that there's a connection, and it's that you remember I said that, and I did a full episode on this about just get it. Like women want a guy who just gets it. He doesn't have to be told how women operate, because a guy, and maybe this even goes back to direct game that we were talking about yesterday, a guy who gets it understands women's nature. And the reason why he understands women's nature is because he's been successful with so many women in the past that he already knows what to expect with the new girl that might be you or whoever, right? So there is an association that if a guy knows how to play the game, if a guy just gets it, that he had to come to that knowledge of getting women because he actually got women, right? Because he was actually successful with somebody in the past. Do you remember that there was there's a movie, what was it called? As Good as It Gets, and Jack Nicholson was in it, and he was a writer. And there's that one very famous scene, like in the Manosphere, people will sometimes like or repost this one clip, and the secretary was starstruck by him because he was this great famous author, and Jack Nicholson, and she says, "How do you write women so well?" And he says, I think of a man and then I take away reason and responsibility. And I thought, and I think I realized that was supposed to be a diss at the time. I realized that was supposed to be something like, oh, he's a misogynist. Oh, but it was, people were laughing because it was funny. They were talking about women's nature. And yeah, but for as a big a diss, oh, it's an insult. Well, yeah, it was, but it was a smart one because that's exactly what pretty much most women are. It's you take away reason and you take away responsibility. And you have today's society and you have gynocentrism. But what's left? If you take away reason and you take away responsibility, you have emotionalism and you have instinct. So how do women apply that instinct and how do they apply that emotion? Instinctually, I would say that applies to the alpha seed side of hypergamy, and the emotional side, probably the alpha seed side as well, but a little bit more, I think, towards the provisioning side. Reason and rationality right now are at an all-time low for women, because I think that perceptually women believe that they don't need to worry about like thinking too much is, they don't want to think too much. They want to feel more than they want to think. And a lot of guys will say, well, they just never, women are just always emotional. No, they do, but they have to be brought to, or they can be reasonable. Women can learn to be reasonable. You can actually have a reasonable, logical, rational conversation with a woman once you get past the emotional side of things. Once you get past how women, that conversation, remember what we were talking about before when I was talking about the differences between conversation and women and men? That's the same thing here. Why do women prioritize how a conversation made them feel before they process the information of that conversation? It's because women are more adept at communication than men are. Scientifically proven. There's lots and lots of research about how women get more from subcommunications, nonverbal communications, innuendos, the way you dress. That women are absorbing communications because it feels good, because they've had to. It was a survival adaptation for women to do that. If they weren't attentive to those things, if they weren't attentive by ways of feeling about, well, did you see that look, that dirty look that girl gave me when she walked in here? And you're like a guy and you're like, I was right here and I didn't see what were you talking about, dirty look? And you're like all mad because you think you missed something, right? Because it's vital information. And if we don't have that, then we're not going to be able to survive. If I didn't see that, God damn it. Why wasn't I paying attention? Well, the woman is paying attention. She's paying attention to subcommunications and nuances and little micro communications that men we don't do, because we're more interested in acting. Men do, women talk. Why is that? Why do I keep saying that? Because that's how women prioritize communication. And why do they prioritize communication that way? Because they prioritize emotion before reason. For men, it's the opposite. Men prioritize information and content of the conversation. And then maybe they think about how it made them feel. And usually that's because they get pissed off. Men's default emotion is anger. Usually it's anger. For women, it's usually crying. Right? I wish it was something else, but it's usually crying, or it's usually hysterics. Right? So, and by hysterics, there's a lot of ways you can express hysteria, and there's a lot of ways you can express anger as well. But that's usually the way that it works out. But when we're talking about like superstitions, we're talking about emotions. We raise emotions up to the level of magical significance, cosmic significance. And when you are the most vulnerable sex, when you are and in most cases, for most of human history, the less powerful sex, you find ways to get to soft power. And soft power is being able to covertly communicate, covertly manipulate, covertly, some guys are going to say gaslight. Yeah, I guess in a way, but to get to be a good, I don't say a manipulator, but be a good seducer. It used to be that women were the seducers. Like, oh, she's a seductress, like that. That's why do we have the succubus, right? The demoness, Lilith. She's the great seducer. She seduced me with her eyes and her body. In fact, that was the first thing, you go and you look at if you believe in the biblical account of everything, as soon as Adam and Eve's eyes were opened, then they realized they were naked, and wow, there, one thing leads to another. I was drunk, he was cute, and one thing led to another. But the fact of the matter is that seduction itself used to belong to women. Now it belongs to men, because men have seen it as a form of game in general, really. Like, people say, well, you're playing games. You're not being authentic. You're manipulating. Well, maybe you are. Maybe you aren't. Maybe that is who you are. Maybe that's what authentically you're about. You're authentic in the fact that you're using whatever you can adapt and improvise to work for you to solve what? Your reproductive problem. For women, that wasn't such a big deal, but power was a big deal in the past. So we get like things like courtly love, sort of be bastardizing chivalry back in the day. I always call courtly love feminism 1.0. Because what it was is this big kind of social engineering project of the time, of the women of the time, usually the note of, what are you talking about? Oh, during the time of courtly love, when courtly love was being something that was a form of soft power. That was how women would be able to influence the men folk, right? Seduce them, in some way, like influence them, manipulate them. Nobody says, oh, they're not being authentic. No, they're being authentic. They're authentically seducing you, seducing you. Oh, they're manipulative. Yeah, you're damn right they are. They're the most vulnerable, weakest, least powerful sex. So how are you going to influence men who have more body mass than you, who are literally built for combat and are willing to prove it most of the time? How are you going to have any influence in the course of your life? How are you going to have any influence over the guy that is the father of your children? How are you going to do those things? Well, you're certainly not going to do it physically as a woman. So how do you do it? Well, you're going to have to do it psychologically. Well, what's the best way to do that? Well, let's start appealing to magical thinking. Let's start appealing to the goddess. Let's start appealing to the Venus of Willendorf, right? Let's start appealing to, I was reading as research for book 4, an article, well, actually several articles about how women would love you to all believe that when we shifted over from, was it polytheistic religions to monotheistic religions, that it was women and female goddesses that were the first spiritual things, or the first gods that human beings worshipped. And that's, if you know anything about Wicca or any like the old occult kind of stuff, it's usually very female centric. Feminists love the occult. That's one. Did you see the thumbnail I put for this one? That's Asia Argento and her little eyeball ring, because she is very much into the occult. She's very much into. She has like it's proven. All you got to do is just go look at her Twitter feed or her Instagram feed. You'll, even to this day, even after Anthony Bourdain has been in the ground for like 2 years, a year and a half now, you know, she's still very much into, and even after she's been sort of proven to be technically a pedophile, certainly a statutory rapist, she's still very much into that kind of stuff. And it's all about the sisterhood. Every last bit of it is about the sisterhood. And it's this appeal to the old religions, or this assumption that the old gods were actually old goddesses. And that's what we need to get back to. We need to get back to this kind of like female-centric, shamanistic, I'll say religion, but the spirituality. And again, what I'm seeing right now, one of the reasons why I think we're kind of returning to that, I keep saying that this one world syncretic religion that I believe is going to be something that we're going to see in our time, certainly within the next 10 years. There's going to be some holdouts. There's definitely going to be some orthodox religions that are going to hold out for a while longer than others. But I think as we globalize, if we ever settle on a one world religion, it will be based on love and inclusion and happiness and tolerance. And we're already seeing it right now. So when I was looking at like this article on Quillette, about how we're tearing down the monuments of old and trying to erase the old religions. And Christianity is one of the easiest ones to do. I don't know. I think probably Islam will be the last holdout, but I don't think they're going to be immune to it either. But people keep saying, well, it's not my orthodox religion. Well, give it a generation, a generation of globalism, where it sounds better and everybody else is into it, and it's sort of this herd mentality. And why? Because it's a gynocentric social order worldwide. So even the guys who've been feminized from a very early age, yeah, they're going to, I don't want to go against the grain. Everybody believes in this, of course, and it'll get to the point where it becomes something that's sort of like taken for granted. Well, of course, that's the way we've always done it. It's love. And if you're against love, you're a hate. You're all about, we got to eliminate, we got to erase you. We got to cancel you because you're about hate and you're not about love. Those two things are emotions. Love is an emotion. I can change your mind. I can make you hate somebody. I can make you get angry at somebody. I can make you fear somebody. I can make you love somebody. I can make you feel comfort with somebody, all by changing your biochemistry and all by like changing your software. And again, it's prioritizing emotionality above I would say a more reasonable, rational, at least debate or critical thought about something that is supernatural. And I don't want to, I hate it because people think like, oh, Rollo, you're an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I'm just thinking I approach spirituality from a different perspective, I would like to say a pragmatic and a rational perspective. So when we talk about religion, particularly in the past, I think that a lot of that old goddess worship or the goddess movement that we're seeing right now finds its roots in powerless women. Like when the reason why women are so susceptible to chick crack is because that used to be a means to covert power for women. You want to know why gossip is such a big deal for women? Because it's secret knowledge. When you look at our archetypes, when you look at Hollywood, there's two kinds of women in Hollywood, two kinds of characters right now. Ever since actually, I shouldn't say this. It's actually prior to the one of those types was prior to the sexual revolution. The other one came afterwards. The tough warrior princess, like the Ellen Ripley character, right? The tough, strong, independent woman who can, kick butt and take names. That girl, that's done to death. It's a cliche right now. The other archetype is the magical, mystical force of nature woman. She's the mystique. That's what the feminine mystique is. She's unknowable. You're a mere mortal man. You don't know anything about women. And even to this day, even on Twitter, women will accuse me and say, you brag so much about knowing women. You don't know anything about women because we're mystical, magical creatures, right? You can hear Beyonce talking about stuff like that. You can hear like this magical, magic, right? About, well, the reason why women are magic and you don't know is because you're just a man and you don't get it. And you know what happens? Guys hear that enough time, they go, I don't get it. Women are just women. I guess we're just dumb apes. Let's go back to work and, let's take a bullet for her, and they'll do it. That's the other archetype. It's the sorceress, the goddess, the mystical, magical woman who gives life to the universe, right? Gives life to the next generation. And if you don't uphold her, she's weak and she's vulnerable and the kids are vulnerable and you're powerful physically, but she has access to God. She has access to magic. She can cast a spell on you. She's a witch, right? She's Wicca. She can see your fortune in these cards right here. You can? What? I was going to use this. I'm glad I didn't. I probably would have got a copyright strike for this, but, there's that part in Pee-wee's Big Adventure. Did you ever see Pee-wee's Big Adventure? When he goes to visit Madame Ruby because he can't find his bicycle. He's like desperate and he'll do anything to find his, like, what is it? What is it? Where's my bike? And he goes to Madame Ruby and Madame Ruby meets him at the door and it's raining outside. He comes in and she says, for $10, I can tell you a lot of things. For $20, I can tell you more. And for $50, I can tell you everything. And then, of course, Pee-wee's first question is, why am I here? And she goes, because you want something. I don't know. I don't know why I got a kick out of that, but I actually used that picture for my old chick crack essay that I wrote way back in the day. But why do we think of women as forces of nature? Why do we think of them as like mystical, magical sorceress? Why do we say that? Well, she's got untapped hidden powers, or she's a force of nature, or she's a nymph, or she's the Oracle of Delphi. Right? Why do we? That's always been a woman. Why? How does she know? Like, was it even some? I want to say it's Hera or it's Athena. One of those goddesses is the goddess of wisdom, right? Fertility and wisdom. And fertility, by fertility, I mean like babies, not like Aphrodite's sex, right? But why do we apply certain, magic, like we raise like certain attributes or certain gender qualities, like feminine or masculine, in certain goddesses. So if you've got Aphrodite, she's all about, here it is. Yeah, she's the goddess of porn, right? Slanesh, right? She's the goddess of porn, right? And then you've got Athena, then you've got Hera, and there's parallels to this in other mythology as well. But why? Why is she the one who's the mystical one who withholds wisdom, who is unknowable? And even today in modern society, we still think of women as being these unknowable creatures. I just got to figure it out. I just don't understand it. What is women's nature? You'll never figure it out. You're a man. You're stupid. We're unknowable. And you're discouraged. You're discouraged to try to figure women out, because if you do, then you realize, who's behind the curtain. And the other part of that is when you do that, it kind of demystifies women for yourself, in the sense that you are enjoying them, because I think guys, particularly beta guys, they foster the idea in themselves that when they get with a woman, that it is a supernatural act. Like they are fortunate. Like, I got lucky. Oh, I got really lucky with this girl. Oh man, I can't believe it. I was in the right place at the right time. No, you were the right guy in the right place at the right time. There's other mechanics that probably went into you meeting that woman. Yeah, sure. There's a certain, element of random chance to being in the right club or wherever you're at, the right school, whatever, so that you can meet that girl. And then, she's into you and you're into her. Okay. Well, is that, did the clouds part and the angels sing? No, but women will have you believe that. And guys will love to believe that, particularly if they're in a scarcity mentality. So guys, when necessitous men are at their most necessitous, that's when they seek out Madame Ruby. That's when they want to, and what I mean by that is they want to believe themselves in the chick crack, and they participate in the chick crack. So one of the criticisms I get is that women will tell me this. So I'm going to address this right now. Women will say, well, it's been men who are the ones who like control religion, and they're the ones that like repress us and keep us sexually oppressed. And it's like, yeah, prior to the sexual revolution, that was a function of religion, was to buffer the worst of women's mating strategies, hypergamy. And likewise, it was supposed to, ostensibly, let's just say, to buffer men's sexual appetites. It was supposed to do those things. That's what social enforced monogamy was all about. We got to keep the family cohesive, and whatever that family means, I don't know. Maybe it's polygamy, but the fact is like you still like under patriarchy is a balanced system. It was men having a responsibility, but also having a commensurate authority. Nowadays, it's nothing but gynocracy. It's nothing but gynocentrism. So it's a very imbalanced, one-sided, lopsided way of gender politics, I guess. For men, it was supposed to be. Now, I'm not saying that patriarchy can't be tyrannical. It can, but generally it's not. At the top levels, at the apex levels of power for men, like in the church or in government or in military or like in dynastic emperors, whatever. Yeah, surely, absolutely. But for the vast majority of guys, which represents pretty much like 99.91% of men on planet Earth, it was responsibility with a lot of with authority, or was supposed to be on paper. But so how do you get around that? Well, men have all the authority. How do I do it? How do I get around it? Well, you convince them that you are an emissary of God. You convince them that you can read tea leaves or entrails, or you're the magical mystical shaman. Like remember in 13th Warrior, when they were trying to figure out who the enemy was and who they were trying to like, what's our quest? Well, we got to go see this woman in a cave. She, gives them, say, oh, Bulbai, you must go and kill their leader and kill their shaman woman too. Great. We got wisdom from the shaman woman, the witch doctor woman, the mystical, magical woman who knows things that men don't know. And you'll see that archetype all over the place. When you're going to see this next, you're going to see it when the movie Dune comes out. And everybody knows I'm a big fan of Dune. If you follow my Twitter, have been for a while. You'll get your nerd. You get your nerd cred if you know Dune quotes. But in Dune, in the fantastic world of Dune and Muad'Dib and was Frank Herbert. Women are very much like the Bene Gesserit. Women are the magical, mystical women, and it's going to be real interesting to see how the woke Hollywood really plays that up in the next Dune. I'm afraid they're going to ruin a really good story by making it all about Lady Jessica, right? Or the Bene Gesserit women, and of course, Paul, the guy who's the lead character. I don't want to give away too much of it. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert, the movies or the book's been around since 1964. So, but they're probably going to play up the female aspect of this quite a bit. We do it already. And the mystical, magical woman, the witch, the one who has secret forbidden knowledge. Well, why is she not like the big burly one? We're trying to, what's funny to me is like from back in the day, from prior to the sexual revolution, we have made like women were this magical, mystical, unknowable force. After the sexual revolution, then we get Ellen Ripley. Then we get the female badass character who kicks butt and takes names and is tough as any guy. Isn't that an interesting kind of parallel right there? It used to be that the source or the means to power for women was sort of subversive, it was covert, it was secret knowledge, it was gossip, it was spells, it was all of this kind of force of nature and feminine mystique. And then after the sexual revolution, now it's the strong, independent lead. It's the girls with guns thing, the warrior princess thing. Mulan, right? Mulan, she's tough as any guy. If they would just let her in the army. Realistically, particularly during that time, she probably would have been beheaded. She probably would have got body slammed by guys who are like 3 times her body mass. When it comes to reality, men fighting men is something that women don't want to be around. If they can help it, they don't want to be around it. You want to see this live in real time? You can go and see it in whatever city's burning right now. So you want to know why chit crack works is because women have this innate affinity for some kind of like soft power, something that's underneath, some kind of secret information, some kind of like, you don't know what I know and I have something on you. Now, that's not what they're saying. They're saying you should love me. You should want me. You should take care of me. You should take care of our children because I'm blessing you. I've chosen you out of all of these men. And the way that I'm doing that, the way that I know you're the guy or you're the one or you're my soulmate or whatever, the way I know that is because I'm a woman and I have this innate power. And it's almost like a mass form of gaslighting, guys, for a long time. And I think it's kind of a testament to where we are as men and women today in intersexual dynamics that women still appeal to that. And guys are like, okay, I guess you're right. Read my tarot cards. Or tell me what my MBTI letters are. Tell me what what's my sign? It's science, man. It's science. That's what it is. It's science. No, it's not science. It's BS. It's not. I wish I could. But it's a means to power. And men play a part in it. Like soft-headed men play a part. Is that a thing? Yeah. But gullible betas are happy to play along with it. But the problem is, I'll tell you the thing is that the guys that women want to get with and use that kind of form of like magical, mystical woman soft power are not the betas who are ready to believe in anything because they want to identify with you. Like I was saying before, let me finish that thought. They want to be with the guys who are the alpha. They want the high quality guys. I mean, it's hypergamy, right? They want the guy who is the best of the best, the guy that other men want to be and other women want to get with. But those guys tend to, if they're, more direct, if they're like more like overt, if they're like really conventionally masculine men, they're like, okay, whatever you say, baby, and they're going to blow you off because they're going to practice rationalism before they're going to practice emotionalism. And again, it's not that men can't be emotional. They can. It's just that conventionally, innately, men tend to prioritize reason before emotion, and then vice versa for women. Let me pick up some other things here. So that was YOLO. You actually triggered like part of all of my notes up to this point. What is this? Rollo's building value. Yes, providing and doing the right thing as a man in society, a blue pill perspective, and what is true maturity. Rollo is building value, providing and doing the right thing as a man in society, blue pill perspective, or what is true maturity. Okay, well, what are you saying, Peter Pan shaming? Yeah, well, guys, I'll get to super chats. I didn't want to go too long today, anyways, but I think that when it comes to maturation as a guy, where guys are kind of on the fence right now. There's sort of a paradox that's going on. And guys tend to think that, especially if you're more blue pill conditioned, they think that they should be trusting the process. And that's really what the blue pill is it's a process. When guys will say that they believe certain things, like I believe that men need to be this way, or I believe that, this religion works best for us because it promotes, a solid, stable society. And so therefore I'm going to live my life like this. Well, most guys aren't doing that right now. And it's not that's not because they're Peter Pans. It's because they have access to information today that they didn't have before. And they're asking questions today that they would never have had in their heads before prior to all this. Part of the chapter on marriage that I'm working on right now, I get into this. Do men have a commitment today to the concept of commitment? Right? Well, if you're a man, you should mean what you say and say what you mean. And if you commit to something, then by God, if you want to be a real man, then you got to stick to your guns. You said you'd be married to her till death do you part. And it doesn't matter if she's off screwing some other guy. It doesn't matter if it's because you're solid. You meant what you said and said what you meant and blah, 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 blah. Right? Old school, old order thinking. So is it a commitment to commitment, or is it a commitment to yourself? Like I got to do what's best for me. And there's a very large and growing faction of guys who say, I got to do what's best for me. I say this all the time. I said, it's enlightened self-interest. I can't help others until I can help myself. I can't help others as well as when I help myself. Mental point of origin. When you are not your mental point of origin, something else is. And usually it's something that you've been conditioned to think should be the first thing you think about when you are faced with decision-making, particularly lifelong decision-making. So does that make you blue pill? It depends on how you apply it. Let's keep going. You guys have gotten some good questions today. I think I might. Well, dang it. I'm going to catch up here. Sorry, I bypassed a few of yours. No. Okay, Simple Fly, who is a psychologist, I have learned. Chick Crack is attention from men, friends, parents, and social media. Please talk about how men can use this understanding to strengthen their frame. Yes. I'll tell you what, Simple Fly, I'm gonna save your question for the very last, because that was the last thing that was on my notes here. So let me continue. We footnote that one. Put an asterisk by that, Sam. Arnold Cash says, once a female colleague made a comparison about beating children and your wife, and I think she didn't realize what she implied with that. What? Once a female colleague made a comparison about beating children and your wife. And I think she didn't realize what she implied with that. Okay. John Doe says, I'm a programmer. How can I relate this? How can I relate to their emotions? Because programmers don't have any emotions, right? We're all mathematicians. It's all about timing, man. No, you have emotions, dude. And there's nothing wrong with that too. You know, I should probably stick a caveat in here too, because a lot of people will say, well, you're the rational male, man. You know, it's all about just, what are you, Mr. Spock, right? It's all about logic and reason, man. What about emotions? How come girls like Robert Smith from The Cure? How come girls like artists and loser rock star, which I was one for a while. I'm not saying that emotion is unimportant or is bad. Emotion's very good, actually. It helps keep us alive for the most part. So I'm not like coming down on emotions. I'm saying that we have so grossly overemphasized the importance of emotion in this generation, in the last one, in really my generation, and the boomer generation before me. The last 4 generations have grossly, hugely overemphasized emotion, the importance of emotion. We base everything on emotions. Like I was looking at some tweets and some articles about, like, today, what was a hashtag today? It was something about like when women are in control or when women run the world. Like it was a hashtag. I think that might have been it. It was like when women control the world, when women come to power. And all the great things that are going to happen. And if you go and you look at that hashtag and you look at all the things that all these mostly women and more than a few guys who are like throwing stuff out there to you know, I hope she sees this. You know, when they're throwing stuff out there to identify with women, it's all based on emotions. All of it. Well, there'll be no more war because we'll all love each other. Or like when, what was it? The Dalai Lama was on International Women's Day. He was saying, well, I hope women will one day realize my dream and goal of a 200 world nation all run by women. That's not equality, Dolly. That's called female supremacism. That's called gynocracy, Dalai Lama. But we think it's a great idea, right? When beta males do, they love the idea of women running the world. Because they think that because they identify with women that they might not be in power, but we'll be the ones that they really love because we supported them. No, you won't. You'll be the ones who are extinct, beta male blue pill guy. It's going to be the alpha male guys that they don't have any use for you. If women were running the world, it would be this emotional mess, entirely emotional mess. And if you look at a lot of you look at the legislation that women opt for when they come to power, it's all about, first of all, it's about 2 things. It's about ensuring women's security, and it's about maintaining the gynocracy as a power base. And so any man who would run against a woman who's already in power, he's already a misogynist. I would say this is, I don't know whether or not Donald Trump will be the next president, will retain his presidency. If he does, then for the next 4 years, you're probably looking at the last conventionally masculine leader on planet Earth. I would say that, and I can say that with all confidence at this point, because if you go and you look at the trends and you look at, guys are just abdicating authority left and right. Even alpha male guys are abdicating authority because they think, because this is it's a generational thing. This is like the 2nd or 3rd, maybe 4th generation of men who think that women should be in power, right? Well, what do women do when they have power? They rule it from emotion. They base legislation on emotion. You want to know why India is in such dire straits with marriage laws and consent laws and rape laws and all this stuff? You want to know why? Because emotions that's all it is. Women should be able to get away with anything they want to. Women should be able to, if you get falsely accused of rape, then you should just shut up and take it, because women have been repressed and oppressed for so long that even if you are wrongly accused and you lose your life or you are imprisoned for the rest of your life, well, that's reparations for hundreds and hundreds of years of women being oppressed. That's emotion. Where's the root of that? It's revenge. It's anger. It's revenge. It's this idea. Well, first of all, it's entitlement and hubris, of course, too. But it's all emotions. It's not reasonable. It's not about like tooth for tooth and eye for an eye. It's not about what is best for humanity in general. Because women, if you ask women, what is best for humanity, what is best for the greater good, they will rattle off a list of things from an emotional base, and they will all start from what benefits women first, because they believe in a feminine correct, female correct society as a utopia. Right? If we were all just agreed with women, and if we all just did what women wanted, and if we all just like made sure that everything that, you know, vulnerable, weak, security needing women need. Oh, and then we're also, you know, we need alpha seed as well. But if we just develop a society around that, the world will be a better place. No, the world will be the most chaotic place you can imagine. And you know how I know that? Look at whatever city is burning right now. That's how I know that. All right, let me keep going here. So John, like how you're asking me this, you said, how can I relate to women and their emotions? It's not difficult. That's the problem, is you can make an emotional connection. Most guys who are like more literal minded, most guys who are more rational, reasonable minded, they think that they don't have some sort of connection to their emotions. They do, but you have to, well, first of all, John, you're going to have to learn game. You're going to have to learn women's nature before you can, before you can relate to that nature. So I can tell you, hey, here's run this script and say these things, but you're not going to believe it. You won't be able to successfully pull it off because you won't be congruent. Your behavior won't be congruent with what you're thinking in your head. Most guys who are very literalist minded, who are very rational, reasonable, like Mr. Spock, right? Or very conventionally masculine. I'm direct. I'm into direct game. I mean what I say and I say what I mean, and I don't want to play any games. So are you DTF or not? No, I'm not. Okay, I'll go on to the next one and, move on to the next girl. Very pragmatic. Okay, great. But the problem with that is you're not making an emotional connection. You're approaching it from the perspective that rationality and reasonability that benefits you, that woman should share that with you automatically. And she's not. Women begin from emotion. They don't begin from reason. That's why I wrote that one article about appeals to reason. Never appeal to a woman's reason. You have to appeal to her emotion. You can later. It's not that women can't understand rational, reasonable arguments and stuff. It's just that they don't make those decisions generally don't make decisions based on rationality. They make impulse buys. That's why all that stuff exists at the front of the cashier counter, right? That's why. Oh, I think I want to stick a gum. That's why is that effective? Why are women the primary consumers in the United States? Because they lead with, it's all about your heart. You should lead with your heart. No, no, you should lead with your head. But why is that? Why is that a trope? Why do we think like, I got to follow my heart? Oddly enough, your heart follows exactly what hypergamy would predict you to follow, young lady. So it's not just, I'm going to follow my emotions. I got to do what's right for my heart. Remember when Jada Pinkett Smith was like, it was all about love. And she even did this. It's all about love. Well, I can change that for you. We can put you on SSRIs and we can change your mood. All of you won't care about love or anything. So it's not some, love. No, it's you following a script. It's you following your impulse. It's you following your innate mental firmware and then making up some reason, some magical, mystical reason, which works for women and it never works for guys. You never notice that? Like if a guy says, well, I had to do what was spiritually right, that guy will say, oh, okay, wow, he's a really upstanding, moral kind of guy. But if he uses that for stupid decisions, we go, whoa. Why did you, I remember one time I was on Pat Campbell's show and a dude called in and he had forgiven his wife of cheating on him 4 times. And the reason he gave us was, well, I read in the Bible that you're supposed to forgive and forgive and forgive. And I married her and it's my responsibility to forgive her and to try to work things out and to be and me and Pat are like, what the hell? Like it seems like stupid, right? Like, why would you do that? She's cuckolding you. Your paternity means nothing to you. It might say that in the Bible. It might say I don't want to pick on the Bible. It might be your moralistic conviction to do those things. But what's the latent purpose of that moralistic conviction? Well, I have no options, so I've got to make up some reason as to why I'm still around and she's still cheating on me. So, Thomas says, what's your take on flaking a girl if her online dating pictures deviate? Okay, I was going to get that for later. Let's do that one right now. So what's your take on flaking a girl if her online dating pictures deviate from what she is displayed on her social media or how she looks on the date? This is something that Rich Coo, is that Rich Coo? Who was I talking about? Oh, I know who it was. It was my Mike, my friend Mike, who's the guy he has actually a new blog out. I need to pitch that at some point. My friend Mike, I've had him on my show I think about a year ago. He's a guy who's in I think he's 55 or 56 right now. Maybe he's older than that, but he's got a new blog that is primarily directed at guys who are in his age bracket, who are getting back into the sexual marketplace. And so there's your plug for really quick. I think it's called Dating After 50. If you look it up, I'm pretty sure that was the URL he gave me. But anyways, so he's always said this, like he was dealing with this rash of getting these dates with women who he thought were good looking on their profile or their Tinder thing, and then find out that they're like 50 pounds overweight or whatever because they were taking pictures at a different angle or whatever. And his practice was for a while, he was trying to be as polite as he could be and say, I don't think it's a connection, blah, 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 trying to avoid this kind of uncomfortable thing. But it happened so often, and particularly in that age demographic, that he had to sort of like be as mercenary as he can be, which is, how recent are these pictures? Do you have any other pictures of you? And women lose their minds when you ask them, like, is this a real picture? Are you really heavier than this? Are you really trying to get away with this? And remember what I said about cognitive dissonance. When women have no trouble with cognitive dissonance, as long as the things that they're cognitively dissonant about, the things that are conflicting with one another, as long as those in some way promote her optimizing hypergamy, she will never have any problem with cognitive dissonance. And this is an example of that. So if a woman goes and she puts her pictures on there and it makes her look like she's this cute little sexy thing, and then you hit it from another angle and she's got cellulite and she looks like she's probably like 60 pounds overweight, well, she doesn't have any problem with misrepresenting herself like that. She will give you all kinds of hell if you do that as a guy, but if she does that, she's not supposed to be, because what women are doing in that case, particularly with cognitive dissonance, is they're relying on old order thinking. They're relying on the old social contract that a man shouldn't be interested in my body. He should be interested in my mind. Then why put pictures on at all? If that's the case, why not just put text? Everybody knows damn well that people want to see what you look like to see if they're attracted to you. She knows that, but it's an insult and it's a crime for a man to misrepresent the way he looks, but it is prudence for a woman to do the same. So I would say this is yeah, you can flake on a girl, but I wouldn't even get to that point, Tom. I would just say you have to be as upfront and brutal as you can. Now this is an instance I would say, yeah, direct game, even direct game online is something that is pragmatic for you. So be pragmatic. In fact, that's my call sign, or it's sort of like what I would tell most men to do anyways. Be as pragmatic as you possibly can when it comes to dating. And you have to be mercenary about it. And you have to be comfortable with being a mercenary about it. Paul Eastside says, most women ascribe to the soulmate myth. Yes, they do. Why is that? I'll explain. Your thoughts about telling a girl you think she's the one while keeping frame and seeing it as nonsense. Okay. Don't. Why would you do that? Why on earth would that even enter into your brain? Never. Excuse me. I'm gonna quote Royce here. This is the first commandment of the 16 commandments of Poon. Never say I love you first. Never say I love you first. Never. As a guy, never say that. Because the moment you do that, you lose frame. And when you say, I think you're my soulmate, I think you're the one, You think you're being clever right here. I'm going to use this as a way to get in there. Well, first of all, you're overcommitting. She should just be a plate to begin with. She should be the one who says, I think you're the one. She should be the one who is saying, I don't like the idea of you being with other girls. I want to be exclusive. That should come out of her mouth, not yours. You always need to, and even after marriage, assuming that's where you go. So let's not call it marriage. If you get into an LTR, if you get into some sort of long-term relationship with a person, with a woman, the only time exclusivity should be discussed is when she initiates the conversation about exclusivity. Otherwise, you are either implying non-exclusivity, or you're making her believe she is a friends with benefits, or you're saying, okay, hey, I'll meet you at the club, or I'll meet you down here for a drink. I'll meet you down there for whatever. When you meet up with her, you're meeting up with her because you are the prince, and she is the one who is appreciative of the prince's time. That's really self-centered, Rollo. Yeah, it is. And exactly the advice you would get from women in the rules women. Your time is valuable. You want to talk about pragmatism? That's that's sort of the mindset you need to adopt, is your time is valuable. And when you give that time to somebody, that has to be appreciated in some way, shape, or form. I'm not saying she has to bang you every time, you go on a date, maybe not in the beginning, but there has to be some kind of she has to become the hell yes girl. You ask her out and she said, hell yes, I'll go there. Let's go rock climbing. Oh, hell yes. All right.
Gotcha, bitch.
There you go. That's what I mean by establishing frame. She has to be the one coming to you. The one who seeks out your attention, seeks out your presence in her life. You got to be that valuable. We were talking about this yesterday about how on Instagram, how dating has changed because of social media and Instagram and stuff like that. And I get it. Women get lots and lots of orbiters, and they get lots and lots of attention from guys. But again, all attention is not created equally. You need to be the guy whose attention she seeks out. And you're not going to do that if you're the guy saying, I think you're the one. Even if you're playing, even if you don't believe in it, why would you say that? Why? Because you're giving up the farm. You're selling the farm. I think you're the one. Why? Don't do that. Just don't do it. Colossal squid. And now I need a picture for that. How far can instinct be altered with knowledge? A lot. I look at it this way. I'm sure you've heard of the concept of body, soul, and mind, right? So body would be the hardware. And I would say instinct in human beings is part of the hardware. It's part of something that you're born with. Mental firmware is sort of our natural proclivities. The way we communicate, for instance, is one thing. Conventional understanding our gender roles, understanding masculinity and femininity from an instinctual sort of species awareness, let's just say. So you're born with certain proclivities as a guy, as a girl, that you're going to be better at certain things. And there's nothing wrong with that. Like Dr. Pinker was saying, men tend to be interested in things, women tend to be interested in people. There is nothing wrong with that. Now, can you train men to be more interested in people? Yes. Can you train women to be more interested in things? Yes. But that doesn't mean that they naturally lean that way. So as I was saying before, it's like martial arts. Human beings are generally conflict averse. We would rather flight than fight. Unless you're big and burly and you're likes to fight guy, generally you're moving away from conflict. But we can train ourselves through martial arts to be comfortable with a fist coming towards our face. And because we know what we're going to do. We're confident in our abilities, and we've done it. We've avoided fists in our face long enough that we know what we're going to do when that comes. Now, can you still be taken by surprise? Sure. Yeah. Well, you don't become Kwai Chang Kang or Kwai Kang Chang or whatever, from Kung Fu, right? You don't become that guy overnight, or if ever, right? You can still be surprised. You can still be, people get the drop on you. You could be killed just as you know, you're still human. You don't have supernatural abilities, but you get into a situation where you're in a survival situation or a fight, or you need to hunt or fish or whatever. You could still train yourself and learn things that you're not helpless. So that's actually part of it. So yeah, definitely. You can definitely train past instinct. People do it all the time. I don't know how I feel about hypnosis, but I think you can probably hypnotize people assuming they want to be hypnotized. You can certainly behaviorally condition people, like a Pavlovian response. Excuse me. Mellow mentoring. How do you see the red pill evolving over the next 20 years? This is probably the single most common question I get from people. We look back and see errors in mystery's ways. Are they errors? Oh, well, let me continue. What do you see as possible errors in red pill theory today? I don't see any errors in red pill theory today. I see that the times have changed because remember, mystery wasn't so much about red pill. Mystery was really about game. It was really about trying to deconstruct and hack women's nature. You had to understand something of women's nature, but he's really hacking. I almost feel bad because mystery should go back to school and become like a behavioral psychologist because he'd be really good at it. He'd be really good at like evolutionary psychology or behavioral psychology. And now I'm out of coffee, damn it. So I wouldn't say that anything was particularly wrong with the red pill because the red pill, as I've said 1 billion times, is a praxology. It is a loose science. It is the science that human beings act in certain ways and they do so with purpose and meaning and intent. And we're, as red pill scientists, I don't know, or studiers, researchers, whatever, we are open to the idea that we can rearrange things with new data. If somebody came up to me and says, Rollo, there's no such thing as hypergamy because I've got this new study here, and if it's that convincing, I'd be like, all right, let's go. Well, okay, then explain this behavior. Explain that. What's the correlations to this? How is it that you think that what you believe is the way you believe? And I'd be happy to listen to you. So I don't necessarily think that anything is wrong per se. I will say this, though, is that the things that worked when mystery was developing mystery method, and we talked about this yesterday, the things that worked in 2002 don't work today. Parts of it. The concepts, the principles, the foundations are still very valid. The applications have changed. And we talked about that with Myron Gaines and Troy and John from MLD. And so, yeah, in an age where Instagram is really the number one dating app, like when women go, okay, yeah, I'll go out with you. And like 5 seconds later, she's looking and like trolling your socials. Oh, do I really want to go out with this guy? He looks kind of cute. Should I check him out? And then on top of that, like one thing that we didn't talk about yesterday is I think it's funny because Troy, well, not so much Troy, but certainly John and Myron focus primarily on women having an Instagram account or having an OnlyFans or having some kind of, and I would say in the future, it's probably going to be something else. But for today, let's just use Instagram as the example here. The first thing I say is like, well, women have all kinds of male orbiters from all over the world. And it's exactly what I've been talking about when it comes to the global sexual marketplace. So no longer is like, when Roosh was in his prime and he was going to Poland or he's going to Estonia or he's going to Iceland or wherever, bang, whatever book he was writing at that time, those made sense. And they worked really well. And they were what he was going through. And that was what the local sexual marketplace was for those particular countries. So if he went to Paraguay or Brazil, or he went to, because I think he had a couple of those, like Bang Brazil, was there one? Estonia was certainly one. Poland was his favorite one. But I think one of the reasons why Roosh has kind of like pushed himself into he's backed himself and painted himself into a corner here, and he's decided to do what he's doing, is because the sexual marketplace in those countries has changed, and it's been changed by the global sexual marketplace. So women in Poland have Instagram. Women in Estonia have Instagram or what, some sort of correlate to it. But what John and Myron were talking about was primarily about like positive reinforcement from beta orbiters. Like they have all these guys that are hitting them up on Instagram or on Tinder or whatever. They have no shortage of guys. They don't have to be in a club to get male attention. They can get it online. In fact, they prefer it online because it's a buffer. They don't have to worry about rejection. They don't have to know about what to say. They don't have to worry about rejecting that guy like face to face. They just swipe left or swipe right, or they just go, ha ha, and then move on to the next guy. That's one thing. The one thing that we didn't talk about was the positive reinforcement that women get from other women. So what was it? There was an article, and I forget where the research came from, but there was an experiment that was done, and it was they showed a picture of, I guess, a semi-attractive girl and a semi-attractive guy. They look both kind of average. I would call both of them like 6s, and they took pictures of them just standing alone, a male and a female. And then they took another one where the girl is surrounded by mostly guys. Well, actually, no, 100% guys. All guys were around the girl. And then they did another shot of the guy who was surrounded by the women. And they did this poll as to who's more attractive. And in every instance, the guy who was surrounded by women was rated as more attractive by women. And for men, because it was a cross, a bisexual, multisexual, or whatever thing. So men were rating this too. So men and women were rating like the attractiveness, and men rated the woman's attractiveness who had other men around as less attractive, because when a woman is there and she's got all these guys sort of hovering around her, that seems less attractive to most men. The opposite, where it's one woman and there's a lot of guys, or where it's one man and there's a lot of guys or a lot of women around one man, women rated that guy as more attractive, and guys also rated that guy as more attractive, because there's a dynamic which we've talked about several times. It's called pre-selection, and it's called social proof is one thing. Social proof and pre-selection are two different things. I don't know if people really realize that. They're very similar, but they're two different things. So pre-selection is when you see one guy and he's surrounded by like beautiful women. That like PUA's picked up on this a long time ago, right? They're like, oh, well, he's pre-selected. All these other girls, just by being around him and laughing at his jokes, are saying, this is the guy that other guys want to be and other women want to get with. Just by their presence, just a picture of it is rated more attractive, and significantly more attractive. That's the power of pre-selection. Now, social proof is kind of like, it leans both ways. It can be for women and it can be for men. So social proof is the guy famous? Did he say something witty? Do people like him, kind of thing. When it's pre-selection, that means women, or in some cases men, but where women have in non-verbally or have communicated in some way that this guy is the guy to breed with. This guy is the guy you want to have kids with. This guy is the guy you want to have a sexual experience with. You want to get with this guy. And the reason for that, and this gets back to your question here about what has changed and what has not. When we're talking about mating and dating in the Instagram age, nothing is more important than pre-selection, because from a biological and an evolutionary perspective, women can't afford, hypergamy cannot afford to make mistakes. And and I don't know if women really realize this yet. Maybe the biology and the psychology hasn't quite caught up to it yet, but women are very easily influenced, and emotionally so, I should also add, by imagery, by seeing that. John has been a big advocate of this app called Face App. And I know women have been using it, but now he's been using it. He's been sort of suggesting it to his guys in body language mastery and stuff. Like, use this for your profile pictures and it will make you look like a male model. Like I haven't done it to myself, but I've seen what it does to other guys. And seriously, you want to go Zoolander? There you go. That's how you do it. Hey, there's your thumbnail picture. So, yeah, it's the power of perception. It's the power of image. It's a power of seeing pre-selection. Pre-selection is easy to foment. Let's just say, to manipulate in women. I didn't put it in the description, but I have an essay called Hysteria. And the reason I called it hysteria was because I was analyzing 2 videos. There was this guy who did one of these videos. It was an experiment. It's kind of like a social experiment. He went into this popular mall. I want to say it was in New Jersey or something like that. And he had a fake TV crew follow him. Like he had his handler, like his PR agent was walking around. And then he had another guy who was walking around with what looked like a real looking like video camera, like a commercial grade camera. It wasn't like a phone or something like that. And so he's going into these stores and so. And then what people were asking would ask his PR agent, who is that? And he would say, oh, it's Jim Smith from the new Spider-Man movie, right? It didn't matter what it was. And so what happened is within like 10, 20, 50, 30 minutes, somewhere around there, this guy had generated so much buzz in that one little mall area that a group of women were following him around because they thought that he had social proof. Because here he is. And he's signing autographs. He's like shaking hands. And he did the same thing. The other video was him doing the same experiment on the streets of New York, like in Times Square. And he got away with it. Still, even more people were following this dude. He was nobody, absolutely nobody. And he did it to get numbers, like to get girlfriend. And this is from a while back. He was doing it to get digits, and he did. But it was all based on nonsense. But the social experiment was fantastic because there were guys that were saying, "Yeah, I know that guy. He's great. He's a great actor." He was like absolutely completely fake, and people would follow along. It's that herd hive mind mentality. And women will foster that. And you know why guys will follow along with that? Because the women are. And they think that if the women are doing that, then those guys got to say that they know that guy. Oh yeah, me and him go way back. He's funny. He's a good guy. Wow. Yeah, that last movie was fantastic. He was in that. They were making up stuff like right there on the spot in front of the camera. And so that's like the power of perception is something that I think we need to change our attitudes about in the red pill, because we can manipulate pre-selection and we can manipulate social proof like we've never been able to do before. And you don't even have to be present. You can do it online. So I think that there are certain things I could probably do a full video on that, my friend, Mellow Mentoring. Kyrith says your interview with Todd V would be epic. I would like to do it with I'd like to do a interview with Todd. Todd's, I don't know. I kind of have a love-hate relationship with Todd, and I don't mean that in a really bad way. I just think that I know why he split from RSD. I have a little bit of insider information as to what happened during all that. But also Todd V went the way of Tucker Max, but he did it successfully. And so when Todd V knocked up his girlfriend and then got married and had a baby, he still had to hang on. What are you going to do? Are you going to still be the dating guru? Or are you still going to be let me teach you about game guy? Is your wife going to be cool with that? Is your daughter going to be cool with that? Are you going to see, I don't teach game. I do red pill. I talk about nuts and bolts. I connect dots. I was never part of RSD. I was never part of that crew. I was never in, Project Hollywood or whatever, but I was there. I was following along with what was going on there. So I know the histories of all that kind of stuff. But when I see guys like Tucker Max go purple pill afterwards, they're reinventing themselves. Roosh did the same thing. It's the script. Once you get into that, once you sort of normalize yourself, like Julian Blank is that there's probably no better example of the script, what I call the script, the purple pill, than Julian Blank. Julian Blank had done a complete 180 and verbally confirmed it. Before he was saying any guy gets married is a sucker. And then literally within 6 months of him being married, he's like, yeah, anybody who doesn't get married is a sucker. Dude, we have the video, we have the tape, we have the documentation, dude. We know you're grifting. We know you're full of bull. So, I would do, if it was something about game, like practical applications of game, I might do it with Todd. I definitely. Rebel Evolution. Is this it? Napoleon Hill's book, Outwitting the Devil, explains a lot of the basic concepts of success and the state of mind of failure and depth. No, it doesn't. Napoleon Hill is one more hack from what was that guy? Phineas something, I can't remember. There's a lot of guys who are in that positivity hack. The positivity hack is this. It's the power of positive thinking. The secret. You want to talk about chick crack? Drop The Secret on a girl. They used to be the way. I don't think women are so much into The Secret anymore, but if you can get into this idea of the power of the law of attraction, it's scientific. No, it's not. It's a huge grift. So when people say, oh, what about Napoleon Hill's how to make friends and influence people? Or Zig Ziglar. Do you like Zig Ziglar? What about Tony Robbins? What about L. Ron Hubbard? Right? What about Norman Vincent Peale? Well, they all come from one guy, and I want to say that the guy's name is Phineas something. Had a really funny name from like the 1800s, and he was the first guy that came up with the power of positive thinking. Like, you are the way you think you are, and there's scientific proof, because if you think positive thoughts, then you'll, like the placebo effect, right? You'll be happier and healthier if you're thinking these things. I can show you studies and research that show that is absolute 100% hokum. In fact, I would be happy to give that. I've got them bookmarked on my Twitter. As a matter of fact, the research that shows that positivity mindset does nothing, largely does nothing. Now, if you think, I'm not saying that's not bad to be in a good frame of mind. You should. It's good. That's great. But if you think that it's some sort of panacea for your problems, motivation is motivation. Don't get me wrong. Like, when you go to Tony Robbins, if you feel like you can take on the world after that, or you go to a church and you listen to a sermon, you think you can go kick in the gates of hell afterwards, awesome. But you'll go back to get more motivation later, because the state of humanity for human beings is discontent. And how you deal with that is really what defines your life. You believe that you can be content in anything as a human being, you are gravely mistaken. Discontent is the natural state of humanity. How can I get better? What can I do next? I climb this mountain. I think I'll be content when I get to the top of Mount Fuji. You get there and you're like, damn, it's great up here. This is awesome. Smells great. Great fresh air. Now what? Now this is great. I like the top of this. The view up here is fantastic, but what about K2? What about Everest? Let's try that. Okay, great. The natural state of humanity is not contentment. It is discontent. And that's a good thing. That's what makes us better. That's what progresses us. It's good to be pissed off and wanting to do something about it. Good. Motivate yourself. Anger is sometimes the best motivation in the world. Discontent is the best motivation in the world. It's how you deal with discontent. That's the difference. That's what makes, I get all philosophical here, but how you deal with discontent is really shows what your character is really about. Because you can deal with discontent in two ways. And I had an art teacher actually tell me this one time. The two ways you can deal with discontent is this. You can do it destructively, which is what most people do. They sit there, they cry, they bitch, they moan, they complain, they rage in the streets and pull down monuments and burn Bibles. And, that'll make me feel better. Then they just lose their mind, and they will gladly burn down the world and you with it, because they're discontent, or have they been brought to a state where they think that discontentment is unsolvable and unresolvable, and they deal with discontent destructively. For most often, self-destructively. Alcohol, drugs, suicide, bad decisions, whatever. But when you deal with discontent creatively and constructively, that's a good thing. That's, if you can find a way to motivate yourself, improvise, to produce something, to create something, to use your discontent creatively and overcome it, and then move on to the next thing, because you realize, you're intelligently, rationally realize that you are never going to be 100% content, then you move along. But when I look at Napoleon Hill, when I look at Zig Ziglar, when I look at Norman Vincent Peale, who's the author of Power of Positive Thinking, which is where pretty much all these guys get, like, what Gorilla Mindset is basically just the same crap that these guys have been throwing out for a long time. Self-talk, self-hypnosis. Tell yourself, have these conversations with yourself and you'll feel better, or you'll motivate, you'll self-motivate yourself. All of that, I can go and find you exactly that stuff in Power Positive Thinking. I can find it in Dianetics. I can find it in Napoleon Hill's work and Phineas Crumplebottom. I don't know what the guy's name is, but like it's been around for a long time. And just think and grow rich. Think it and it will happen for you. So Think and Grow Rich was Napoleon Hill. That's what it was. And then there was, but it's like, how great would that be? It's like prayer, right? You want to know why, like, was it the prosperity pastors back in like 2006, 2007, like Creflo Dollar. Like, who's following Creflo Dollar, man? Like, the dude's name is Dollar. I've got this Learjet because God wanted me to have it. He wants you to be prosperous too. Thank you, Mr. Dollar. What? Let's see. I lumped that. I know a lot of guys love Napoleon Hill. I know they love Tony Robbins. I know they love what I call, what is it? Success porn. Today, it's in 2020, it's never been on the internet in the new order. It has never been easier to disseminate that stuff. And it never seemed newer. This is great. I just read this ebook. It's called Gorilla Mindset. Oh, great. Vince C. Is testosterone in direct conflict with covert communication? Good question. If covert communication is out of the picture, we just have direct game left. Yeah. And that kind of goes back to that other question. What was he asking me? He was saying, who was it? It was Mela Mentoring. I said, what would you change about game, or what did game get wrong, or what did a mystery get wrong? I don't think he got anything wrong. I think got everything right for that time, because that was the context. That was a social context. Like let me tell you something. If I would have had mystery method back in the early 90s, or like the late 80s, early 90s, before the internet and all this other stuff, if I would have had that, I would have seemed like I was rollotomassi, right? I was prescient about everything, because I could, it would work fantastic for a local sexual marketplace. And that's what they were worried about. That's what they were really focusing on. All the stuff that Roosh wrote about in his lay guides, that worked locally. That's why each book was here, bang this country, bang Poland, bang Iceland, bang Brazil, because those were local sexual marketplaces. We're not in that anymore. It's the Wild West, and the whole world is the Wild West right now. So I got this question yesterday too, is testosterone in direct conflict with covert communication? Well, maybe not in those words, but so testosterone is, I think, a lot of people will say testosterone is like the most dangerous chemical on planet Earth. I strongly disagree with that statement. I think it is the most productive. It can be. Remember we were talking about discontent? Yeah, you can certainly use it destructively. And if you're chock full of testosterone, it'd probably be really destructive. But you can also use it constructively. So what most guys, and Vince, this is, I get this occasionally, because a lot of guys will say, well, I don't want to play any games. I just want her to do what I tell her to. How come women have to be like women? How come they can't be more like a guy, right? How come they can't just mean what they say and say what they mean and just go along and get along? I don't want any drama. Why do women have to get off on indignation? Why can't they just, be drama free? And maybe after a certain age, they get that way. It's not that they're drama free. It's that they can't engage in the drama that they used to love so much anymore, because circumstances have changed for them. Women love drama, even old women. My 75-year-old, mother-in-law lives downstairs. She loves indignation, loves it. Pretty much every woman I know loves indignation, but their ability to participate in that indignation is completely out the window. So they can do it vicariously, but that's about it. In fact, you'll see that's women love to live vicariously through their daughters, through their girlfriends, through their single sisters, through the daytime television, whatever. So it's really kind of like, do you as a guy think that a woman is ever going to be able to be like you? Is she ever going to be able to communicate like you? And I would say this is, you really don't want her to do that. I don't think that most women feel slighted if you don't come over to her way of thinking. if you don't communicate the way that she wants to. That's why they constantly say, men don't listen. Yeah, we don't. Well, you're damn right we don't. We're not wired to listen like the way you do because we don't communicate the way you do. Another thing I had on my list of, I didn't get to it, was on my show notes today, was empathy. And we tend to think that women have this innate, magical, mystical, supernatural ability to, I know what you're thinking. You only have your mind on one thing, and it's sick, mister. You know, and so we think that, oh, you can read minds. You know, no, you can't. And women don't have any natural mystical powers of empathy, but we tend to think they do because they have a better facility with communication. So, you know what I'm thinking? No, you don't know what a guy is thinking, but you have this female intuition, or you have this hypergamous filter that you would like to believe is accurate, because if it's not accurate, you could die. Or in your ancestral past, if your hypergamous filter was in error, you and your children are dead. And that doesn't benefit anybody's genetics, because women are the incubators, right? So when it comes to testosterone, I think the better part of your question here is direct game all we have left? Yeah. I think I was convinced of that yesterday when I was doing Rule Zero. I still think indirect game has a purpose, but it is after the fact. One thing that when we were talking yesterday, when I was talking with Myron and I was talking with John and Troy too, is I understand, like, they're going to say, well, you know, Rollo, Rich, Ryan, you guys aren't in the game. You're not in the field. You don't know what's going on out there. Okay, well, fine. But I do know what happens after you get into, after you start spinning plates. So I see, like, when I'm in the field, when I'm doing promos or something like that, I can only be the observer. I can only be the observer of human behavior. I can only take mental notes. And I think I've done that pretty accurately for almost 20 years now. But I think that for now, like, for guys who are in the game, guys who are like getting laid, guys who are like running game, what accounts for game anyways right now. Yeah, a direct game really does work better right now. And it's all, like I said before, it's all about perception. It's all about pre-selection, because hypergamy can't afford not to know what it's talking about. Like, not to hypergamy can't afford to pass up on what a woman's mind, or what a woman's intuition is telling her is an ideal hypergamous situation. So when women, like we're saying about cognitive dissonance, when women are with a guy, they're supposed to be like exclusive with one guy, and they go and bang the hot guy in the foam cannon party in Cancun, they don't have any problem with that, because hypergamy says, well, that guy was so hot and that was such a good opportunity that I will make up any amount of BS to convince hopefully I get out of this. I will never tell. I'll go to the grave with this secret. But that was such a good opportunity that I couldn't afford not to take it. I couldn't afford not to get with the guy in the foam cannon party. And I think most guys are sort of on their back foot right now when it comes to that, especially guys who are already in a relationship with a woman, because women right now are enjoying like this unprecedented time of selectivity. And they believe anyways, it's an extended time of selectivity. Even women who are like really grossly overweight, like women who are like into body positivity. You want to know why body positivity and like fat acceptance is a thing right now? Is because women believe that it shouldn't matter. It doesn't matter if we're fat. It doesn't matter if we're skinny. It doesn't matter. There's no restrictions, no prerequisites for women. And if you put one on them, you're a misogynist. You're a sexist. There's something like you'll be shamed and canceled if you even so much as hint that the fat chick that's on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit edition is anything less than just absolutely gorgeous and breaking all of these gender and beauty standards. Oh, yay. Can I get laid? Can I please have some pussy? Please. So I think that when it comes to direct game is a good, honestly, I think we're going to have to standardize on that, at least for the time being. there might come a time where things shift, where women need, like, remember when COVID hit and everybody said, well, now these feminists, they're going to turn into housewives. I'm in a good spot now. And tradcons were just falling all over themselves too. Like, finally, now I'm the most desirable guy. I'm an electrician and I go to church and I got a golden retriever and, I go, got 2 kids there. I'm the most desirable guy in the world. No, you are not. It didn't change anything because we're in a global sexual marketplace right now. But when it comes, like if you switch back to where women were actually valuing a man's productivity, where they actually valued men's provisioning, the beta buck side that we keep talking about is like no longer an issue for most women, or the perceptually no longer an issue for most women. If we go back to it, like 1950s, you want to know why tradcons want a time machine to go back to the 50s? Because then they were at the top of their game, because they were the guys who were out there making money and being, don't worry, baby, I'll keep you safe and fed and the lights will stay on and we'll have a place and we'll have kids and a dog in the yard. Well, that if we ever got back to that, which is this golden romanticized era, then yeah, maybe indirect game would be a little more useful. Now it's not. In an era where alpha seed, and I'm being nice about that, where alpha seed is the only thing of value to women, yeah, direct game is all there is. But that's getting your foot in the door. So if you go, like Myron was saying yesterday, is like he was saying he was running, it's a numbers game for these guys. When you do direct game, yeah, it is absolutely a numbers game. Can you enhance that with a little bit of indirect game? I think so. Can you be a mystery? Can you be a challenge? Yes, but you have to be high enough of value of a man that a woman wants to figure you out. Today, women don't have to figure guys out. Women are just simply unattracted to 80-85% of guys, and that's that. And the only attention that's valuable to them is from a guy who is hot, a guy who really looks good, because again, it's all perceptual on Instagram. Oh, look, there he is without his shirt on. Oh, look, he has a 6-pack. Oh, this is him. Look, he's with the dog. Oh, it's so cute. That's perceptual. Once you get past that perception, that's when game comes into its own. And I'm not going to say that that's the only part of it, but there's a congruency that goes with that. So when guys, like when I talk to Myron and I talk to John and we talk about like direct game it's going to take over. It's the only thing that's there. It's like, well, yeah, but once you've got the arousal going, once you've turned her into a plate, then what? Like, is it just like, because here's the thing, is if you're talking to guys who just think it's all about direct game, how do you spin plates? Because if the world is all about direct game and it's all about like approaches and rejections or exceptions, you're looking at a world that is all about same night lays. And maybe it is, I don't know. But it's all about same night lays, and that's the end. Yeah, I had fun with her. It was great. She was fun. We did it 7 ways to Sunday, and it was great. But I never saw her again because it was all based on that perceptual initial direct game attraction. So if that's your game, if direct game is if you're like overt and you're in her face, and are you DTF or not? No. Okay. Well, I'm on to the next one. Oh, you are? Okay, good. Now what? Oh, okay. Well, yeah, we did it. It was fun. It was awesome. Okay. Here, I'm going to buy you a cheeseburger and I'll get you an Uber ride home. and then what? Right? Because those girls will still go back to Instagram and they still have access to all those guys they did before they said, yes, I'm DTF for you. So where maybe game comes in after that, right? Maybe indirect game comes in after that. Maybe some sense of mystery comes in. Is it just like, okay, this is me, and if you don't like it, away. And the other part of direct game is a lot of guys get really indignant because they don't want to learn game. They don't want to understand women's nature. It seems like a waste of time. I'm not just talking about like MGTOW / doom pill guys. I'm talking about like average, like even alpha guys, blue pill alpha guys. I don't want to learn them. Who cares? Who cares what they think? Right. It's like that old 1950s, Mad Men attitude, right? She should come to me. she should, I'm the one. What do women want? Who cares? Who cares what women want? I don't figure them out. Screw it. She wants to be with me. She wants to be with me. Fine. And they get indignant because they think that that should be on their terms. Or love, for example. Women can't love me. Why? Well, because I think that my idealistic perspective of love is the universal one. Now you're doing exactly what women are doing. Rather than saying, well, you're different and I'm different, but my different is the real different. It's like being female correct. Well, doing it like females is the correct way to do it for society. That's how we got a gynocentric social letter. How do we get a patriarchal one? Well, the way that I do it, the way that I think that love should work out, romantic wise or fraternal wise or platonic wise or whatever. This is the way this should be the universal standard. You don't want to know it. You don't care enough to know about women's nature. Okay, fine. But at some point, you're going to have to be the guy that gets it. Or you're going to have to be the guy that is the hell yes guy. So if you're the guy who says, well, she needs to come to me. It's my frame, right? It's all about me. And I don't care about what women think. I don't care about what their headspace is. I don't care that they need indignation. I don't want to learn about game. Screw that red pill stuff. Screw all that. I don't have anything to do with that. If she wants to be with me, she'll come and be with me. And there's plenty of those guys out there right now. Let's see. Jeez, man, you guys are hitting me with a lot here at the end. CJ, maybe they gravitate to the occult because of their, thank God you got back on topic. Maybe they gravitate to the occult because of their social status in ancient times. Yeah, in some ways. They lack physical strength and financial social resources. They're supernatural folk tales and illusion of power. Yeah, that pretty much is it. Now, think about this, CJ. You go and you take generation after generation for thousands of years in that state. And it gets to the point where the presumption is that women are these mystical, magical creatures. And if you're a blue pill beta male guy and you're told for most of your life that you need to identify with women and you need to respect women. Well, okay, how do I respect them? Well, they're magical and mystical. Oh, okay. Yeah, tell me more. Read my tea leaves. Tell me about my numbers. What's my numerology? Oh, let me tell you. And the funny thing is that the guys who accept that, the guys who are like when I talk about chick crack, I think it's no shock that most of the PUAs in the early days picked up on this because it's so reliable and it's been reliable for a long time. Most guys don't pick up on it. But, I hate to, maybe I don't hate to do this, but I have seen video of women who will accept just on word of a religious elder, a male, as to how they ought to behave. Nowadays, that's a rare sight, but I've seen video in the past of men sort of like mansplaining or religious splaining certain, let's say, doctrines that women should follow according to that particular religion. And women be like, okay, because they believe that they're closer or higher to God. They believe that they're like right now, particularly in evangelical cultures, church cultures, the men foment this idea that women are closer to God than men are. And if women are unhappy with a man, if women are, if the guy has a porn addiction, if the guy's not living up to what that woman's like lofty expectations are of that guy or of any guy, if that guy is not her ideal lover, husband, father, blah, 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 then that means God is displeased with him. And what we've done is we've taken, women have become like the Pharisees of old, right? They become the Sanhedrin, where they are the intermediaries between man and God rather than the other way around. It used to be that it was God, man, and the man had responsibilities and authority granted to him or bestowed upon him by God. And then part of those responsibilities was to your wife, to your kids, to provisioning, to your tribe, to your nation, whatever, and, on down the hierarchy, and your dog, whatever. And we've inverted those now. And so now, because we've swallowed this egalitarian equalist communitarian, feminized, gynocentric crap, we have replaced that. We've put women in the role of being the intermediary between men and God. So if women are upset with you, then it means God's upset with you. But yeah, but that has inverted itself right now. And people say, well, not in my church, in my Orthodox church. Your Orthodox church that is also being assimilated. And your Orthodox church that will probably be fundamentally unrecognizable by the time, like within the next 1 to 2 generations. Because you will not be able to exist in a global situation if you don't buy in or become assimilated either directly or indirectly by the global religious, say, undercurrent. I think maybe that's a better word. Alex Schmidt says, opinion on George Carlin quote. I don't get all choked up about yellow ribbons and USA flags. Those are symbols, and I leave them to the symbol-minded. Okay, well, guess what? Everyone is symbol-minded. Where we see things in, like, it's funny. There's these. Have you ever been in a bathroom, or like maybe even your own bathroom, and you have like acoustic on, like you got like one of these kind of acoustic walls or something that makes these random patterns on, like whatever the tile is. Maybe it's tile or maybe something. And you start to, like, if you stare at it long enough, and you can be completely sober. You don't have to be like drunk or like tripping or anything like that. If you look at the wall long enough, you'll start to see shapes in it, or so or you look at clouds and you'll start, oh, that cloud looks like Godzilla. You'll start to see things in there because we look for symbols. Human beings are fantastic at pattern recognition. We had to be. That's one of the ways we survived for so long. So when we look at what we think are seemingly random, or maybe they are completely random, chaotic patterns of things, we start to pick out symbols from within those things. Now, the relevance that we give to those is different, but I think that human beings naturally look for some symbolism, let's just say, even if it's just like, oh, look, that cloud looks like a little kitty. John Doe says, sorry, another John Doe follow-up. You know what? I'm sorry, I can't read all of that last one, the John Doe one, Sam. I'm going to move on to Jack Barber here. He says, how might you appeal to women's emotions without identifying with them? You need to hype them. You need to know that they're there, and you've got to be at least interested in, like, women's nature, first of all. And then second of all, you have to know what, like, circumstantially, why would that woman be in that emotional state? If I really wish that, like, some of these old RSD videos were around. There used to be these times where, like, RSD, purveyors of game, let's just say like Owen Cook or somebody, would do Insta dates. And you have to figure out that when women are on the street, or when women are with their girlfriends, or they're out and they're in what we would call a sexual zone, they're in a state of you presume that they're in a state of emotion where they are open to meeting somebody else. Or what is a woman's emotional state when she's at a funeral? What's in a woman's emotional state when she's shopping in the mall? You ever try to pick up a girl at the mall? What's her emotional state when she's partying with her girls on Girls Night Out in Vegas at Dre's? You have to make your best guess. I mean, good. That's why they call pickup artistry, because there's a amount of artistry and figuring things out, and being a good artist, being a good interpreter. So you have to amplify those emotions, and you have to find some way to associate those emotions with you. So if you just pick up a girl and you have this irrational self-confidence, or you're using amuse mastery, stuff like that, like the old school. It used to be cocky, funny, those kinds of things. You stand out, like, again, pattern recognition. You want to be the guy who stands out in the crowd, and sometimes you don't have to necessarily make a good emotional connection. It could be a negative one. It just has to be any emotional connection. But how do you do that without identifying with them? Well, the first thing you do is you become red pill aware. You break out of the idea that you have to identify with them. You break out of the idea that, or you get to the point of fearlessness as a guy, where you go, I don't care what you're outcome independent. I know I have a real problem with outcome independency, because I don't think that it's possible. I think that just by you going out and going into the clubs or going to game a girl, you're outcome independent. You want to do, nobody goes to a club and says, I don't care if I get later, I don't. No, you do. You wouldn't be there if you didn't. So there is some outcome dependency according to what your actions are. If you're making an action, you're probably doing it because you want a particular outcome. Now, identifying with a woman and saying, well, if you try to empathize, if you try to say, well, yeah, I've done that too, or you try to sympathize, you want to know why they call them simps? This is according to Rollo Tomassi. They're simps because you're trying to be sympathetic to what they're going through. You're a simp. Yeah, well, you're a simp because you're trying to pretend like you feel the same thing that girl is. You believe in the nonsense. Don't believe the hype. Don't believe the idea that you have to do that. And that's hard for a lot of guys because a lot of guys don't want to come off as jerks. They think that if they come off as a jerk, then they did something wrong. Or if they get rejected, then they did something wrong. You can be rejected for a lot of things. It doesn't necessarily have to be because you weren't hot enough or you weren't the right guy at the right time. It could be a lot of different things. She just simply is not in the mood, right? She's just not looking for that right at that point. I've had guys who would hit the same girl with the same game, with the same direct or indirect, and they would get two different outcomes with that girl from 1 week to like a week later. So don't beat yourself up with it. And don't get into the habit of trying to be her friend. Be brave enough, be bold enough to say, you know what, I'm not your friend. I would like to get to know you. I would like to be intimate with you. I would like, are you DTF? But don't overcommit. Most guys overcommit. They telegraph that. You want to know why guys get rejected for that identification you're worried about? It's because they telegraph that interest with their words, with their actions, with the way that their behaviors, whatever, with their their attitudes towards that girl or towards their friends. Remember, when you get with a girl, it's not just the girl that is deciding whether she's going to bang you. It's her friends that are giving her that pre-selection or that social proof as well. And if you don't believe me, what women will do is they'll take a picture of you. Hey, what do you think of this? They'll ask their mom, what do you think of this guy? Is he cute? Should I go for it? That's hypergamy wanting confirmation. I think he's hot. Should I go for it? They need help. Paul Eastside again says, to clarify, not saying I propose the soulmate myth, just nodding when she says it. You can nod, but I think what would happen is like, I think a lot of guys are afraid to be, and this goes back to what Jack Barber was just saying. Like a lot of guys are afraid to be contradictory. They're afraid to say no to a girl. They want to go with yes, and then they want to carry the conversation. Be bold enough to say no. Be bold enough to take a stance. Say, you know what? I don't believe in that soulmate crap. There's some good ones and there's some bad ones, but there is no one. Rathan Slog says, thanks, Rollo. Your wisdom has helped me immensely. Respect the Don. You are welcome. Christian Matico, your opinion on Corey Wayne again and again and again. I don't know. I don't really care about Corey Wayne. Okay. I have seen his stuff. I don't know enough about Corey Wayne to really be overly concerned about it. I know he's been around for a long time. From what I've seen, I think his old stuff is a little bit more red pill. I think his new stuff is he's sort of leaning towards like what is comfortable. So Simple Fly says, best coaches of sports and art begin with fundamentals and understanding boundaries of the field. Thank you for your work, my friend. You're well. I skipped over Arnold Cash. No, I didn't. Once a female colleague made a comparison about beating children. Okay. I did skip over that. I couldn't read the whole thing. And your wife and I think she didn't realize what she implied with that. I don't have any clue what you're talking about there. Do me a favor and tell Rollo that I sent him an email yesterday. Yeah, I do know. I got it. Yolo, I have been tying up loose ends since I got back from Vegas this whole week. So I actually have not got to my emails yet. I'll probably do it after the show. Is it beta to get Rollo's name tattooed on my butt? Yes. Yes, it is. Do not do that. Unless you're a hot chick, then you can, your name is Travis. Okay. No. Yeah. It's definitely blue pill and beta to do that. But if you're a good looking girl and you get it tattooed, I would be interested in you sending me that tattoo, a Rollo tattoo, so I can go rub it in Tate's face. Okay, now this is the last one I wanted to get to. This is Simple Fly, and he asked me this. He says, chick crack is attention from men, friends, parents, and social media. Please talk about how men can use this understanding to strengthen their frame. Okay, here we go. This is the last bit right here. Chick crack, as I've reiterated throughout the show, is has been a game technique for a while. So how do you do that? If you're going to incorporate that, and you can do this into your direct game. So if a woman is, I think a lot of guys think that when you're talking about direct game, that it's just like you go up to the hot chick and you go, hey, bitch, you're DTF. Oh, okay, no, okay. Yeah, like that's the whole conversation. There has to be some congruency. There has to be some attraction. There has to be some sort of IOI. There has to be some kind of conversation before you get to that one point. You can't be that blunt. And I know that Myron said that there's it was Rich. Rich was saying that he was seeing some guys in the club who would just like point to a girl and then point to his dick and go, and they would come over and they would, okay, are there guys that can do that? Yeah, very attractive guys can do that. Most dudes, being 80% beta, still have to figure out the conversational skills. They still have to have social intelligence. They still have to have game. So when you get to that point, it's not, most guys don't want to get into direct game because they're afraid that they're going to get Me Too'd. They're afraid that it's just going to lead to an outright rejection. And if he does it publicly enough, or even if it does it privately, some girl's going to say, this guy just tried to ask me to be, if I was DTF. Can you imagine? And then now the global sexual marketplace says, avoid this dude. So there's still an element of game that goes along with that. So let's just say, for sake of argument, you're doing an approach. How do you use chick crack to your advantage? You don't have to say, hey, do you believe in UFOs? Hey, what do you think about ghosts? Do you think ghosts are real? Or God forbid you say, oh, what religion are you? When's the last time you were in church, young lady? You're at the club, right? That's a little too over the top. Most guys, like I said, it's particularly in this day and age, most people are very binary and they think that, oh, Rollo said to use chick crack. So do you like UFOs? Don't do it that way. What you need to do is add things into your conversation. Say like, man, this is a great place to be. Or, hey, when we go to Hawaii, I really want to take you to, and you just like you instigate, right? Hey, when you go to Hawaii, or when I was in Hawaii, it was a really special experience for me. You're talking about your travel, you're talking about yourself, right? Really a special experience for me because like I was on the coast of Kauai and I saw a volcano explode and I just thought, this is the most spiritual place I could be, you just like add stuff in there, like you slip it in. I'm not saying be that over the top, but like slip in those things. Like location is a good one. Like this is a very special place. This is sacred ground. Sacred ground was one of the, I'm using this, but it's so easy to use chick crack because like PUA is just, it's when you go back and you read it. I was just reading it in the game. When you go back and read it from like 2005, which is when it was published, it seems I was laughing the whole time I was doing it, but it's true. A lot of this stuff it's still applicable today. You just have to like update it contextually for the time. So, you don't want to sound like Hansel from like Zoolander. Like, yeah, I had a Sherpa and we were on the top of this Tibetan mountain and, boy, I was mountain climbing. And then one of my carabiners broke and a woolly mountain goat, saved my life. And that was very spiritual. And you don't have to go that. Unless that's your grift, unless that's your game. Like if you have like long hair and you're like this hippie dude, you're like, maybe that works for you. If you look like, Corey Worthington, the Alpha Boot, the old Corey Worthington. So there's the location thing, like spiritual, like sacred ground is another one. The other one is having a prop. That's a really good one. I think I mentioned that already. Having like some sort of like yin yang necklace or something that is sort of spiritual. A tat of some kind, like, hey, look, it's my family coat of arms or whatever. But like there's certain things that you can do that will prompt those conversations. Or when a woman prompts those conversations, go with it. Don't go against it. Go with it. You want to talk, like the guy was talking about, how can I make an emotional impact on her? Go with the conversation. If it's offered to you, go with it. Not like, oh yeah, I'm into Brazilian power crystals. Don't say that. But like, oh yeah, do you think so? The other thing that you can do is this, and this is a very powerful one, is when something comes up where you're in a conversation and you have to be indirect about this. I'm sorry, but you have to be indirect about it in this way. If something comes up in the conversation where a woman says, well, a woman knows, or I have an intuition about things, or you are talking about some kind of topic that might be relative to her like female intuition or her insight, right? Or imaginary, mystical, powerful, empathetic insight. And then you go and you say, you defer to her. It's kind of like never outshine the master from 48 Laws of Power. You go with it. It might be complete BS, but you go with it. You go, well, I was thinking about something and I want to get your opinion as a woman. And it's entirely nonsense, of course. You're playing a game here, but you're playing a game that appeals to that. So let me get your, you being a woman, you would know about palm reading, right? Or you have sort of this confused man thing, like where you play along with the spiritual pretext that she knows something. She has insight just because she's a woman. Like, you know what? I've heard that, I'm an Aries and I've heard that we're supposed to be like really bold and headstrong. Do you think is that something? And even women, as long as they have some sort of interest in you, they'll go with it. They're happy to go with stuff like that. Unless you're like dating some like computer scientist or something like that. And even then, in those cases, the girls that you think are science minded or think are nerd girls, they love that stuff. They'll go along with it too, because it sounds right. So those are a couple things. Like sacred ground is one. The sort of appeal to her mysticism, like you're the dumb male and you're asking the Oracle of Delphi to help you understand his spiritual nature. Like, I'm a man and I'm stupid and I don't know anything about like astrology or UFOs or ghosts or anything like that. Do you think ghosts are real? Like, as a woman, do you think ghosts are real? And you're pushing the conversation along with that. And that what you want to talk about conversations that will keep going. And I'm not saying dwell on those things, but add them in, pepper them in. Like it's like seasoning for your game. So those are a couple things. Sacred ground. I'm trying to think of the other ones. There's some other aspect. If I think of anything more, I'll put it in the comments as well. But those are a couple ways, or 3 ways to go about it. Appeals, like I said, appeals to that already presumptive idea that she already knows something about it, even if she doesn't. And what, the younger the girl is, the more she's going to probably go along with it. Oh yeah, totally. I'm totally about that. I totally think that's even religious girls, even the good girls that you think are religious, will still have some sort of like curiosity, and that curiosity, because you asked about that, is sort of like your inside joke. It's like you're in a tribe of 2 at that point. Like hey, you know this guy, I know this guy. Or you can also you could do this. Oh, this was another one. Is as a woman, what do you think that girl over there is totally checking us out? That girl over there, what do you think she's thinking? Now that doesn't sound like chick crack, but it is chick crack. What do you think that girl's thinking about us right now? Because you're appealing to this supernatural, the presumption of supernatural knowledge. Like, oh, well, girls know what other girls are thinking. Well, girls are so special, they can read minds. So read her mind. What is she thinking about us right now? And then you're in the cool, you've already presumed the sale. You've already presumed like we're already a thing. We're like this already. But that girl's looking at us right now. What do you think she's thinking? Because you're the magical, mystical Bene Gesserit girl who can hear other women's thoughts. You know what I'm thinking, right? Clearly you do. I submit to your magical, mystical knowledge, and play those games. Say, well, you're playing games. You're not being authentic. No, everything is seduction and everything's manipulation, and if it gets you in there, You're getting to from point A to point B. You want to know what game will work. There you go. That's chick crack. So, all right, guys, that is it for me today. Gosh, I knew I was going to go long on this one too. Last but not least, go check out Donovan Sharp's. Where is that? Where did I put that? Donovan Sharp is doing. Let's put it up again. Womanese Volume 2. Check it out. Let me know what you think about it. I audited the first class. This is Volume 2. I audited Volume 1. I wanted to see what it was all about, and it seemed pretty good. It's I don't want to say it's like body language mastery, but it's sort of like conversational skills. Like what is like, remember how we talk about how was it medium is the message? Like what is she saying and what is she meaning? What is her, what is the underlying sub communications that a woman is talking to you about? So go check that out. It's got I can't give you all the detail because I want you to go and check it out on the detailed site, of course. But I'm endorsing it. Also, I should add this is that where's the banner? There it is. If you want to participate, go to that link. That link is also the first link that's in the. Pull that out now. That first link is the first one that's in the description, so you guys can see that. There you go. So go check that out. And let me know what you think about it. I'm always interested in knowing what people think of like John's body language mastery, Donovan's thing. It's only going the registration closes at midnight Eastern tomorrow. So you have roughly 48 hours to sign up. You use my link. That'd be great. And let me know what you think about it. If you think it was money well spent, I want to know. Okay. So there you go. And I will cease that. All right, guys. I hope this has helped you a little bit. I originally, of course, the reason I wanted to talk about this is because this is actually part of book 4. And there's actually a part about chick crack and why chick crack is, I even hate using that term right now because chick crack is really sort of the methodology. It's like what pickup artists were using as a practical game application. But when I talk about chick crack, it's like what's underneath it? What is motivating it? Why do women have an affinity for the mystical, the magical? Why is it that the feminine mystique is a thing? Why is it that men are not encouraged to understand women's nature? Because it's a soft form of power. Well, in 2012, heck, in year 2000, you could use that as either you can be stumped by that. You can say women are just fickle, stupid, and emotional because of that, or you can use it to your advantage. And that's what PUAs did. But what I was interested in is the nuts and bolts and what's underneath the surface about that. So you want to know why, when it comes to religion, and I'm not just talking about Christian religion, any religion, there's actually a very strong upsurge in interest from Western women in the Hare Krishna movement right now. Why would that be a thing? Later on in the book, I talk about how we are moving towards what I call, not what I call, but whatever it's been called, a syncretic religion, which is all is one. Like, it doesn't matter. It's like pick and pull. It's interfaith. It's the Beyonce worship service at the Catholic Church in San Francisco, right? It's everybody's welcome. Doesn't matter if you're what religion you are. You can be just spiritual. That's the whole thing. We're leaning towards spiritual, but not religious right now. And where do we go with that? How do we organize on that? Well, we organize according to a female emotional affinity for the mystical, for the occult, for the magical, because that has always been seen as like women are supposed to be more spiritual. And maybe they have been from the perspective of them using it as soft power. And in an age where more men are feminized to see female correctness as the way to live their lives, it seems like the right thing to do. Like, well, of course they are. Oh yeah, women, they should totally be in charge of everything, including our religions, including our governments, including our local, our mayorships and our governorships and whatever. So there you have it. Book 4 is almost done. I'm doing the layout for the print version right now. And so look for that very soon. And that's it for me. I will see you guys on Wednesday at the same time. I am going to do on Wednesday, I'm going to be doing Red Pill Roundup. So I'm going to be taking your email questions, which I've already got. Please don't send any more than you already are. I have a lot to get to. I really want to answer a lot of these on air because a lot of them are the same. A lot of them, they're the particulars are different, but the question is basically the same. So I'm going to get to Red Pill Roundup, and I'm going to get to your questions, emailed questions. We'll start with those, and we'll just do a full-on chat. So go check out Donovan's thing, and that is it for me. I will see you on Wednesday at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. Goodbye.